Chapter 20. Glancing at the untouched tea on the table, Jiang Wang greeted. Concubine Song. Have you eaten? I'll book a table at a restaurant later. I'll book one. Du Yehu felt as if he had been granted amnesty. I'm familiar with all the restaurants in Maplewood City. Concubine Song sat down and waved her hand. There's no hurry. Concubine Song came to find you for something. Looking at Jiang Anan, who was secretly observing him, Jiang Wang returned a gentle smile and said, What's the matter? Please tell me. Concubine Song rubbed Jiang Anan's little head. Why don't you go out with these two big brothers? Take a look at the place where your brother lives and cultivates. Du Yehu immediately opened his arms to Jiang Anan, his big face wrinkled like an old chrysanthemum. Come, brother who'll take you to buy delicious food. Ling Yi also consciously said, Don't worry. We've been through life and death with Jiang Wang. We'll definitely take good care of Jiang Anan. Jiang Anan was very sensible. Although she was very timid, she still timidly took a few steps towards Ling He after hearing Concubine Song's words. No matter how one looked at it, Ling He, who had a proper appearance and a gentle smile, was much more reliable than Du Yehu, who had a full face of beard and an exaggerated smile. Ling He took Jiang Anan out with great comfort. However, before Du Yehu left, he fiercely glared at Jiang Wang. That gaze clearly said, What does your sister mean? After the few people were sent away, Jiang Wang withdrew his smile and looked at Concubine Song. Is Fengxi Town still peaceful recently? How's the shop at home? It's not a big problem, but Concubine Song was a bit embarrassed. Jiang Wang controlled his temper. What's the matter? Just say it. Ever since your father passed away, the shop's business has been deteriorating day by day. It looks like the two of us won't be able to live much longer. As she spoke, Concubine Song suddenly took out a handkerchief and wiped her tears. The only shop left in the family was in the medicine business. Although the scale wasn't large, it had many years of channels. In the entire Fengxi town, it had a good reputation. Back then, when his family was in decline, he had sold almost all of his businesses. However, he had left behind this medicinal shop because it had lasted for a long time. With this shop in hand, although he couldn't say that he would become rich, he definitely wouldn't be struggling to make ends meet. In the end, what kind of talent was it to be able to run a medicine shop that had been doing well for a long time to the point where it was getting worse day by day in just a few years? Jiang Wang was not a fool. When his father was still alive, he had deliberately talked to him about some business matters. He wanted him to go back and live a peaceful life if his cultivation failed. He knew there was something wrong, but Jiang Wang only said, Is there anything I can do to help, Concubine Wang? He thought that if he needed some gold and silver, he would be able to gather some. No matter what, Jiang Anan was his only sister. Even if it was only for Jiang Anan's sake, he still hoped that they could live a better life. I know that little Wang is used to working hard. He will definitely have a good future. But Concubine Song wiped her tears. Concubine Wang is just a woman without any skills. I really can't hold on any longer. She looked up at Jiang Wang with teary eyes. Can you take care of Anan in the future? The last trace of warmth in Jiang Wang's eyes disappeared. He never would have thought that this woman didn't even want her own daughter anymore. Jiang Wang nodded slowly. It seems that Concubine Wang is married to a good man. Concubine Song lowered her eyes slightly. Only now did she feel a trace of shame in front of her late husband's eldest son. It slowly came out from the deepest part of her heart. Marriage and funerals are all human nature. Jiang Wang didn't say anything harsh. Then does Anan know that she will live with me in the future? She doesn't know yet. Concubine Wang thought that she would first ask for your opinion. You know that she has always been timid and afraid of strangers. Even if I take care of her, she won't have a good life. Although Concubine Song was explaining, her voice was getting lower and lower. I know. Jiang Wang interrupted her. Should I tell her, or should you? You tell her, Concubine Song said. I have to go now. The carriage is still waiting for me outside the city. Jiang Wang was silent for a while. All right, I won't see you out. I will send you 2 taels of silver every month. No need. I can still afford to take care of Anan. Concubine Wang, You should take care of yourself. Yes, you and Anan will be fine. Concubine Song said and stood up. She took 2 steps outside and suddenly stopped. She turned back and said to Jiang Wang with tears in her eyes, Anan doesn't like to eat winter melon. She likes eggplants and sweets the most, but you can't give her too much. She often kicks off her quilt when she sleeps. She's young and doesn't know any better. As her older brother, please bear with her. Concubine Wang. Jiang Wang didn't want to say anything more, but when he saw Concubine Song's attitude, he couldn't help but say, I don't know if you still remember. Back then, my father could have held on for another 2 years, but he refused treatment and wanted to leave the family property to you. He wanted you to take good care of my younger sister, who is still young. Concubine Song was speechless. She covered her face and left. Jiang Wang sat in a daze. After a long time, he poured himself a cup of tea. All these years, he had been seeking the Tao. No matter how difficult it was, he had never asked for a single tael of silver from his family. It was because he thought of his father Bedreddin and how difficult it had been for Concubine Song and Anan. It was because he thought that his father would rather die early than be a burden to them. How could he take the family's money, even though he was the indisputable heir to the family's considerable fortune? The conversation from back then seemed to ring in his ears. Little Wang, you've grown up. You can take good care of yourself, right? Yes, father. That young figure seemed to overlap with this moment, passing through all these years and intertwining with each other. And I can take good care of Anan, Jiang Wang said softly. Ling He and Du Yehu brought Jiang Anan around for a bit before returning. Hey, where's Andy? Du Yehu asked without thinking. Ling He subconsciously wanted to pull Anan closer, but that little hand had already stubbornly pulled away. Jiang Wang looked over. The little girl, who was not even 5 years old, stood there silently. She gently bit her lip, her large, black eyes unblinking. She stood between Ling He and Du Yehu, but seemed to be isolated in some corner of the vast world. She did not cry, nor did she make a fuss. Jiang Wang strode over, half squatted, and took the little figure into his arms. He also pulled her back from the loneliness in the corner of the world. He pulled her back to the lively world. Anan, you'll live with your older brother from now on. Older brother will often play with you, just like we used to. I don't know if you still remember how young you were back then. Yes. Older brother who will also often play with you in the future. Du Yehu hurriedly added. Little Anan glanced at him, then turned away expressionlessly. She then gently buried her little head in Jiang Wang's shoulder. All right. Jiang Wang stood up with Anan in his arms. Anan will live with me in the future. It's not convenient to live in the dormitory. I have to find a place to live first. Let's eat together later. You should book a place to live first. Ling He took out 2 pieces of silver from his bosom and stuffed them into Jiang Wang's hands without any explanation. Take this silver. After entering the inner sect, Ling He's life was not so tight. The Tao Academy would give him a monthly allowance. However, these 2 pieces of silver were all that he had. Yes. Du Yehu was inspired. He immediately began to search all over his body, but in the end, he only managed to scrape together 4 knife coins. He awkwardly placed them in Jiang Wang's hands. I've already drunk all of this month's allowance. Then, he solemnly declared, next month I won't drink next month. I'll save money to buy new clothes for Anan. Jiang Wang did not stand on ceremony. He casually stuffed the money into his pocket and carried Jiang Anan out the door. They had already walked far away, but Du Yehu was still leaning against the door. Little Anan is too cute. Hey, old Ling, why don't I have a younger sister? Old Ling? Du Yehu turned his head. Ling He was already sitting on his bed. A younger sister with a face full of whiskers. How scary would that be? Ling He thought. She's the same as old third. She's a cultivation maniac. Du Yehu muttered. He walked to the window, picked up the cup of tea that Jiang Wang had poured for him, and gulped it down. Pa. Du Yehu spat a few times. Why is this tea so bitter? You might as well die of bitterness. Ling He said unhappily. Chapter 21. As the only large city within 100 li, The residences in Maplewood City naturally weren't cheap. Ling Yi's funding was a drop in the bucket, and Jiang Wang himself didn't have much savings. Fortunately, there was someone who didn't lack money. Jiang Wang carried Jiang Anan and went straight to find Zhao Ruqing. "Give me some money." Jiang Wang went straight to the point. Zhao Ruqing and Jiang Anan were staring at each other. Hearing this, he asked casually, "How much do you need? How much does it cost to buy a small courtyard near the Tao Academy? My sister and I will live in it. There's no need to buy a courtyard. You could just stay here. I have a lot of empty rooms here." Zhao Ruqing winked at Jiang Anan, then winked at her, occasionally revealing a smile that he thought was handsome. Of course, his appearance could be considered handsome. Jiang Wang glanced at Jiang Anan before saying, "We need a home of our own." He didn't care where he lived, but Jiang Anan was different. The little girl had just been sent here. No matter how strong she appeared, her heart was inevitably fragile and sensitive. "Oh," Zhao Ruqing rubbed his chin in thought. "My family seems to have a few residences near the Tao Academy. Wait for me to ask." He turned and shouted, "Uncle Deng." A moment later, a middle-aged man with a gentle temperament walked in and bowed meticulously. "Young master, do we have a suitable residence near the Tao Academy? Make some space and hand over the deeds to my third brother." The steward called Uncle Deng replied, "There's no need to specially vacate it. There are 3 vacant residences. May I know which one you want?" Zhao Ruqing looked at Jiang Wang. "Third brother, what do you think?" Jiang Wang smiled warmly at the steward. "I'll have to trouble you, Uncle Deng. The residence doesn't need to be too big. Anan and I can live there. Most importantly, it's close to the Tao Academy. It'll be convenient for me to go home and accompany her." The steward returned to smile. "There's a small courtyard in Pegasus Alley behind the Tao Academy. I just don't know if the layout is to your liking. Let's go. Let's go take a look." Zhao Ruqing immediately said, "Just give me the key." Jiang Anan didn't like to talk and didn't pay much attention to others. But that delicate little face was naturally lovable. Along the way, Zhao Ruqing kept teasing her. "And who do you think is more handsome between brother Rucheng and your brother Wang?" "Sigh, I raised a question that doesn't make sense. How can there be a comparison? And do you see the Tongho Lu over there? Come into my arms. Let's buy the whole bundle. Is that okay? And do you know how heavy you are? Look at how fat you are. Your brother's hand is about to break. Aren't you going to let your brother Rucheng hug you instead?" And had been talking to Qian Sheng silently. When she heard this, she tilted her head and glanced at Jiang Wang. "Are you tired?" she asked softly. Jiang Wang smiled warmly. "I'm not tired at all. I won't let go until next year." The small courtyard in Pegasus Alley was quite good. There was a main room, a south room, and 2 east and west rooms. Although no one lived there, it had all the necessary facilities. They only needed to buy some daily necessities to move in. The decoration of the rooms was also very elegant and comfortable. Jiang Wang led in around each room to make sure she didn't show any resistance. "Okay, here it is." Jiang Wang smiled brightly at Zhao Ruqing, who was chattering around and, "Give me the key. You can go back." "Okay." Zhao Ruqing turned around and walked away. When he stepped over the door, he suddenly turned back and waved at him. "Your brother Ruqing is leaving. Don't miss me too much," and then ran over and closed the courtyard door with all her strength as Zhao Ruqing smiled brightly. At night, Maplewood City, which had been bustling all day, quieted down. The little earth dragon in Tontian Palace completed its last leap and spat out a round ball of Tao energy into the star array. Jiang Wang opened his eyes and ended his meridian breakthrough cultivation for the day. The accumulation of Tao energy, day and night, bit by bit, would not be in vain. They would eventually turn into a foundational array and open the transcendence realm. It was because of these countless days and nights of boring cultivation that he would be able to move unhindered in the future. The room was very quiet. Jiang Anan was lying on her small bed. Her small hands were placed outside the quilt, and she was motionless. Because Anan was too young, Jiang Wang specially asked someone to custom make a small bed for her to sleep in the same room as him. 2 beds, one big and one small, were on opposite sides of the room. Quietly listening to Ann's breathing, Jiang Wang said softly, "And you're not asleep yet?" The little girl's somewhat flustered voice immediately sounded in the room. I'm asleep." Jiang and Ann's nervousness made Jiang Wang's heart ache. Such a young child had already learned how to read people's expressions. It was only because Jiang Wang had repeatedly warned her to sleep early before he started his meridian breakthrough cultivation. Now that she was unable to sleep, she was anxious and uneasy. A little girl less than 5 years old suddenly arrived in a strange place and was suddenly separated from her mother. She was already very strong that she didn't cry out loud. What kind of panic did she feel in her heart? But of course, these things shouldn't be mentioned again. "Oh, big brother can't sleep." Jiang Wang's voice became even softer. "Do you want to look at the stars?" After a while, an as soft as a mosquito sounded in the room. "Then get up." Jiang Wang got up and lit the oil lamp. Then he walked to the small bed and helped An put on her outer clothes. His hands, which were nimble when wielding swords, were especially clumsy when taking care of a child. "You can't put on like this." "Big brother, you put on backwards." Jiang Wang withdrew his hand in embarrassment. "Then you put it on yourself." The two of them busied themselves for a while before walking out of the room. At this time, the moon was bright in the sky and the stars were speckled. The empty courtyard was filled with clean moonlight, making this night that should have been a little lonely become warm and soft. "Are we going to look at the stars in the courtyard?" Jiang and raised her small head and asked. "Of course not." Jiang Wang suddenly hugged her and leapt onto the roof. Jiang and screamed. When she landed on the roof, her small face was already red. Jiang Wang lowered his head to look at her. He said somewhat guiltily, "Did I scare you, Inen?" Jiang and blinked her large eyes. She was actually faintly excited. "Big brother, you can fly?" Although she seemed eager to try, Jiang Wang didn't want to look like a big monkey jumping around on the roof. It would make people laugh. "I can't do it right now. When Big Brother's Tao techniques are accomplished in the future, I'll definitely be able to do it. When the time comes, where An wants to go, we'll fly there. Okay?" "Okay." Jiang Wang took off his outer coat and spread it on the roof. Then he lay down next to An, one hand behind his head. He called out, "Come, be like Big Brother and lie down and look at the stars." Little An obediently lay down on Jiang Wang's outer coat. Her small hands were also meticulously pillowed on her head. She opened her pair of dark eyes wide and looked straight at the stars. The vast night sky was dotted with stars. They were actually twinkling. Countless lights were born in the endless darkness. The galaxy was vast, containing countless dreams and memories. That's the North Star. That's called Yuheng. The Southern Dipper is over there. Look there, they're twinkling as if they're blinking. Only are adorable and in blinks like the stars. Like your big brother Wild Tiger. Like that big bearded man you saw during the day. He blinked like a cowbell. Jiangnan giggled. "Do you know, Anin? These stars are all hundreds of millions of li away." "How far is hundreds of millions of li? Is it even farther than Fengshi Town?" "It's much farther than this. It's countless times farther. If there's a path that leads to the stars, an ordinary person who walked from birth to death for a lifetime may only be considered to have just started on this path." Anin was a little surprised. "So far?" "Yes, so far. They cross such a long distance in the endless darkness. They send light to your eyes. They dedicate their beauty, which may have been extinguished for tens of thousands of years, to you. They're so nice. Father is that kind of star. He may have left for a very, very long time, but he is still very, very far away, working hard to shine and accompany us with this light. So no matter what, don't be afraid, okay? Brother will always be with you. So will the stars. Brother." Jiang and An's voice was very soft. "My mother doesn't want me anymore, right?" Jiang Wang was silent for a moment. Should he tell the truth and tell An and that she was a burden and affected her mother's life? Should he criticize Aunt Song's selfishness and make An hate her birth mother from now on? How should he answer? He didn't have time to think for too long, because silence was also a kind of hurt. In the end, he just turned sideways and held in An's little hand seriously and gently. And then you're so cute. How can anyone not want you? It's your brother who wants to live with you very much. That's why Aunt Song sent you here. When Aunt Song left, she cried very sadly. She also couldn't bear to part with you. Really? The starlight and moonlight shone on Jiang and Anne's little face, stroking the tears that had not faded away. She was as beautiful as the fairy of the stars and the moon. Although there was still a trace of confusion on her face, her big eyes suddenly lit up. Chapter 22. Just like that, and it began her life in Maplewood City. Annie Song sent a letter after that, saying that she had married and moved to Wangjiang City. As a city known for its prosperous commerce, Wangjiang City was second only to the capital, Qing'an City. Her husband's surname was Lin, and they were considered a prominent family. In that case, she had found a good home. No wonder she could not bring her daughter along. As for the remaining properties of the Jiang family in Fengxi Town, Jiang Wang did not ask about them. No matter what, Annie Song and her father were husband and wife. She had taken good care of him after he fell ill, so it was reasonable for her to give her some dowry. However, that was the end of their conversation. There was no need to contact them anymore. 4 or 5 years old was the age for her to learn. Jiang Wang arranged a private school for his sister. It was the best private school other than the schools of the 3 major families. Ordinary people would not accept her. Jiang Wang had been the leader of the outer sect of the Changdao Academy for so long, so he still had some reputation. Especially now that he had entered the inner sect and his Dao meridians had manifested, he was already the future pillar of the Zhuang country. No one would easily offend him. Every day, after attending scripture classes in the academy and cultivating for a while, he would go to the private school to pick up, and when accepting missions, he tried his best to choose missions that did not take more than a day. Usually, he would go on the same day and return on the same day. If there was a mission that could not be missed, he would let Ling He, Zhao Ruqing, and the others take turns to look after it, and the days flowed by just like that. The foundation-laying array diagram in Tongtian Palace became more and more complicated, and it was beginning to take shape. However, the further it went, the more difficult it was to set up the foundation-laying array diagram. This was especially so when shifting Dao energy before the foundation was laid. If there was a mistake, the Dao energy would dissipate, and the meridian opening would be wasted. Because he had chosen the heavenly cycle star formation, he laid the foundation slower than others. Thus, during the process of laying the foundation, Jiang Wang did not allow himself to fail every time the formation point shifted. In terms of combat power, because he had not laid the foundation, he could not cultivate Dao techniques. Jiang Wang could only work hard on the East Rising Purple Qi sword technique. This sword technique had a total of 9 cultivation techniques and 5 killing techniques. As the name implied, the cultivation techniques were the cultivation techniques, and the killing techniques were the killing techniques. He used the training method to temper his physique and comprehend the way of the sword. He used the killing method to attack the battle formation and destroy the enemy. Fortunately, after mastering the 9 styles cultivation method, its effects on nourishing the body's qi and blood were astonishing. Jiang Wang could even clearly sense that his body was giving more feedback to the Dao vein true spirit, speeding up the condensation of his Dao energy. After a period of time, he actually had an additional opportunity to break through his meridians. He could condense 3 Dao energy beads every day. This undoubtedly greatly shortened the time needed to successfully lay his foundation. Jiang Wang's life was fulfilling and satisfying. In such a life, he welcomed his first large-scale mission since entering the Maplewood City Dao Academy. Urgent conscription mission, no one is allowed to leave. In the academy, the morning class had just ended when a black-robed general barged in. "Who is this person? What are you doing?" The disciples whispered to each other, but soon someone pointed out the truth. "Keep your voice down. That's Wei Yan." The entire academy immediately fell silent. He was ranked second on the Dao merit ranking and a general with real authority in the city guard army. No matter what his identity was, it was enough to suppress everyone. In particular, This military officer was known for his unyielding and ruthless style. Wei Yin did not seem to care about everyone's attitude, or rather, he only needed to express his attitude. Since last week, there has been no news from Shaolin Town for 5 whole days. Jiang Wang and Ling He exchanged glances. Shaolin Town was a large town under the rule of Maplewood City. Although they did not report everything, they still had to report every now and then. Without news for 5 whole days, it was almost equivalent to Maplewood City losing control. A town with thousands of people suddenly being isolated from the outside world was not a small matter. Wei Yin continued. With the City Lord seal, I conscripted at least 30 inner sect disciples from the Tao Academy to head to Shaolin Town to investigate this matter. Isn't this the duty of the arrest department? A disciple asked unhappily. Conscripting 30 inner sect disciples from the Tao Academy for such a large mission would definitely be dangerous. Thus, many people were unwilling. The heart-devouring demonic bear has appeared in Tri-Mountain City. Currently, most of the arrest department's forces in Qinghe County have been transferred to Tri-Mountain City. Wei Yin did not reply. His adjutant, Zhao Lang, explained from the side. The Zhuang Kingdom's official system followed that of the Yong Kingdom. Ordinary cases were handled by the Yamen, while cases involving transcendence were taken over by the arrest department. The arrest department was responsible for investigating transcendence all over the country. In theory, they were controlled by the local government. However, due to the special nature of the capital, the local government could not order them around. Just like this time, mobilizing people to chase after Xiong Wen was the idea of the arrest department. Even the city lord of Maplewood City, Wei Qiuji, could not intervene and transfer them back. What about the city guard? The disciple asked again. The city guard was the direct military force of the city lord. They suppressed all evils and rebellions. A major incident like Shaolin Town losing contact with the entire town was enough to trigger the city guard suppression. The city guard has another important mission. Wei Yin interrupted impatiently. The reward for this mission will be increased by 30%. In principle, it will be voluntary. However, if the number of inner sect disciples who sign up is less than 30, I will forcibly conscript them with the city lord's order. I need to remind everyone that before this mission, 2 9th-rank wandering meridian cultivators from the city lord's mansion who went to investigate were lost in Shaolin Town. I hope that everyone will take the risk and act according to their abilities. The Tao Academy system was the most important transcendence promotion system in the Zhuang country. The Tao Academies in each city would absorb the local cultivation seeds. After cultivating for a few years, they would pass the examination and be promoted to the Tao Academies in each county. After that, they would be promoted from the county Tao Academies to the national Tao Academies. In the end, all the geniuses of the Zhuang country would be gathered in the capital. Those who advanced would compete with the heroes of the world. Those who retreated would be sent to various places to guard. Although Maplewood City's Tao Academy only recruited 10 inner sect disciples every year, due to the high difficulty of being promoted to a county Tao Academy, many cultivators spent years or even decades in the city Tao Academies. The entire Maplewood City Tao Academy had accumulated over the years. Excluding those who had not returned from their travels and those who were in seclusion, there were about 300 inner sect disciples. From Wei Yin's point of view, he could not wait for the number of people who signed up. According to his original intention, he would directly use the conscription order to mobilize the strongest 30 people in the entire Maplewood City Tao Academy. This would increase his chances of success. However, the Tao Academy and the City Lord's Mansion were not subordinate to each other. There was no way to resolve the situation. "Boss, are you going?" Jiang Wang asked Ling He softly. He was actually a little worried because this mission would definitely involve extraordinary powers. Moreover, Ling He and Du Yehu had not opened their meridians yet. It could be said that it was extremely dangerous. "Of course I'm going." Ling He did not hesitate. He was already one step behind on the path of cultivation. Of course, he would not miss the opportunity to increase his Tao points by 30%. As for the danger, if he was afraid of danger, he should have farmed in the village. "I'm signing up." Duya, who was already shouting. All four of us are signing up. Zhao Ruqing bumped him unhappily. What are you doing? I still want to go back and catch up on my sleep. Among them, he was the one with the least fighting spirit. All he did every day was eat and wait for death. Other than relaxing, life was still relaxing. Wei Yin glanced at them indifferently. Seeing that none of them had successfully laid their foundations, he did not care. He only casually ordered his adjutant, "Record it." The adjutant said loudly, "The registration period is limited to 5 minutes. There are 26 spots left. We cultivators are supported by the country. We should contribute to the country. I'm signing up for this operation." Following his voice, Li Jianxiu floated in from outside the courtyard. A disciple of his strength already had a lot of freedom. Not only did he not have to report to the academy every day, he could even refuse a forced conscription of this level. Unless the country was in danger, they would only climb to the top of cultivation. As soon as he appeared, he caused a series of low cries. How can we let Jianxiu monopolize the limelight? Count me Wang Zhangxiang. Unlike Li Jianxiu, who walked with his sword, Wang Zhangxiang's temperament was much more peaceful. He was still wearing the linen robe Jiang Wang had seen him in the Hall of Dao Points. His steps were slow and calm. With Brother Wang and Brother Li joining us, this operation will be even more assured. Wei Yan's cold face also squeezed out a rare smile. Facing Wang Zhangxiang, who was ranked 7th on the Dao Points ranking, even he could not be arrogant. With the addition of Wang Zhangxiang and Li Jianxiu, everyone's enthusiasm to sign up suddenly increased. Very soon, the quota was full. Apart from Jiang Wang and his 3 brothers, almost all of the 30 inner disciples had a cultivation base of the 9th rank. They were all transcendents. This kind of transcendent force could practically sweep through Maplewood City. Wei Yin casually took the list and glanced at it. He nodded and said, "You people have some courage. You haven't read scriptures and have lost your humanity." Perhaps to him, this was already praise, but the condescension in his tone was still rather unpleasant. The Ministry of War and the Dao Academy were 2 different promotion systems. There was cooperation and competition between the two. It was common for them to find each other displeasing to the eye. Immediately, a disciple said discontentedly, "If Senior Brother Zhu was here, I wonder if some people would still dare to point fingers." This person was naturally talking about Zhu Weiwa, ranked 1st on Maplewood City's Dao Points ranking. Wei Yin did not get angry. He only raised his robe and walked out of the Dao Academy. Let's go. Chapter 23. Xiaolantown was northeast of Maplewood City. It was separated from Maplewood City by Qingshan Town. In terms of distance, it was the town furthest from the main city in Maplewood City. Under Wei Yan's lead, the group did not stop. They passed through Qingshan Town and arrived outside Xiaolantown in half a day. There was no green mountain outside Qingshan Town. This name had been passed down many years ago, or perhaps it had existed before. However, there was a moon cypress forest outside Xiaolantown. It was very small and could be seen at a glance. Moon cypress was used for calming the nerves. Furniture made of moon cypress wood was very popular. It was said that this forest was very large in the past. However, because of the high value of the moon cypress tree, the townspeople often poached it. Thus, moon cypress forest became smaller and smaller. If not for Maplewood City's order to prohibit poaching, this little forest would have died out many years ago. The constables from Qingshan Town were stationed in the forest. They were either sitting or lying down. They were rather undisciplined. They only gathered together to greet them when they heard the sound of hooves. These constables were only ordinary martial artists. Of course, they did not dare to enter the town to investigate. They were only there to observe and warn. Wei Yin stopped outside the forest and casually glanced at them. He asked, "How is Xiaolantown?" The head constable of Qingshan Town was a man with a broad face in his 40s. He answered, 5 days ago, there was fog outside Xiaolantown. At the time, we did not pay much attention. We thought it was a change in the weather. At that time, we could still see the outline of Xiaolantown and faint figures. There were even people from Qingshan Town visiting relatives. Yesterday, we received orders to come here and observe. We did not see anyone come out. However, the fog is getting thicker and thicker. Now we can't see anything. Jiang Wang looked up at Xiaolin Town from among the disciples of the academy. Maplewood City was his hometown. Although he grew up in Fengxi Town, he was not unfamiliar with Xiaolin Town. He had defeated the Xishan bandits by himself. They were in the Xishan Mountain, 10 miles north of Xiaolin Town. In the past, Xiaolin Town could be seen from Moon Cypress Forest. The town was not rich, but it was peaceful. Now, all he could see was a dense fog. At this time, Wei Yan's voice sounded. I ordered you to observe Xiaolin Town, but you were undisciplined. There were even some who took the opportunity to steal the Moon Cypress tree. Are you here on official business or for personal gain? The faces of the constables of Qingshan Town had already turned pale. The chief constable bowed repeatedly, trying to explain something. But Wei Yan had already said, send the Moon Cypress trees that have been cut down to the city guard camp. In addition, everyone's salary will be deducted for a year. Constables have the responsibility of leadership. Resign. The broad-faced man's face was ashen, but he didn't even dare to protest. He could only dejectedly withdraw. Hearing Wei Yan's words, Jiang Wang noticed the fallen lunar cypress trees. Wei Yan saw everything as soon as he arrived. On one hand, Jiang Wang sighed at Wei Yan's keenness. On the other hand, he felt that this man was really strict. Little Forest Town had fallen, and Moon Berlin was temporarily ownerless. These were just constables risking their lives to set up checkpoints outside Shaolin Town for observation. And while they were at it, they chopped down a few trees to supplement themselves. Although it was a dereliction of duty, it was actually something that could be understood. Qingshan Town was not a wealthy town. Forfeiting a year's worth of salary meant that the constables would be hard-pressed for money, especially for this middle-aged man in his 40s. Being a constable was probably the peak of his life struggle. Wei Yan's words caused him to return to his starting point. However, this trip was almost like marching. Wei Yan led the troops like a commander. His orders were military orders. No one could defy them. After Wei Yan finished dealing with the matter, he pulled on the reins and led the horse to gallop in the direction of Little Forest Town. The horses were all war horses from the military camp. The riders were all cultivators of the Taoist college. Although there were only 30 or so people, they obeyed orders and moved as fast as lightning. They had the presence of a powerful army. The horse hooves were like thunder rolling across the ground, but they suddenly stopped. The war horses that had been in battle for a long time raised their hooves and neighed in front of the mist that shrouded all of Little Forest Town. No matter how the riders urged them, they were not willing to move forward. The 30 or so war horses were terrified and neighed in unison. It was as though there was something in Little Forest Town that they feared the most. This scene was frightening. Even though the riders did not make a joke of falling off their horses because of their strength, their morale had plummeted. They were no longer as spirited as when they had just left the city. Even Wang Zhangxiang, who is usually calm, had a grave expression. Only Wei Yan's expression did not change. The armor on his body was mottled. The saber at his waist was long and straight. The war horse under him was tall and majestic. Everyone knew that this was one of Wei Yan's 3 treasures. But he suddenly pulled out the saber. It was as though a bolt of lightning flashed through the air and the saber light disappeared. The horse under him stopped neighing. The large horse's head fell from its body and was sprayed a distance away by the pillar of blood that surged out of its neck. The horse corpse fell to the ground. Wei Yan pressed down on the saber and looked at the town in the mist. His voice was cold. What is the use of keeping you if you are afraid of battle? Good. The first to respond was Du Yehu. He was naturally fierce and liked to be straightforward. He immediately smashed down with a fist and smashed the horse's head. The one surnamed Wei. How do we charge next? Wei Yan's right hand straightened slightly. Listen to my order. Dismount and prepare for battle. Form the arrow formation. With me as the arrowhead, enter Little Forest Town. Wei Yan's killing of the horses made everyone realize that there was no way to retreat. At this time, there was no room for hesitation, and they all dismounted. Wei Yan said again, raise the troops. There was the sound of sharp swords being unsheathed. At this time, Wei Yan's ordinary-looking adjutant stood out. He raised his right palm, and his left hand formed a seal. He muttered and finally said, "Sharp." Jiang Wang only felt the sharpness of the long sword in his hand. This long sword could only be said to be of excellent quality. At this time, it had the illusion that there was nothing it could not break. Attach flame. All the weapons were burning with flames. The practitioners raised their swords as if they were holding torches to illuminate the town in the mist in front of them. Solid. Ling He felt his body become tough. There was a feeling of fullness that made him want to fight with his fist. However, he only glanced at the furious Du Yehu beside him and quietly wiped away this misconception. Zhao Ruqing thought that the group buff Taoist technique was at least a C-class, upper-class Taoist technique. And Wei Yan, the ordinary-looking adjutant, could cast 3 of them without changing his expression. The Ministry of War was indeed full of hidden talents. No matter what people thought, there could only be one while when marching. Under the buff of the Taoist technique, Wei Yan took the lead and stepped into Little Forest Town. Everyone walked and observed. The town was so quiet that only their footsteps could be heard. After walking for a while, the mist seemed to be thicker. The mist was so thick that it was almost solid. It was impossible to see people 3 steps away. Only the flames on the weapons could be seen stubbornly standing in the endless mist. They had to shrink the formation again. The distance between them changed from 5 steps to 3. Any closer and it would affect the battle. Jiang Wang and his brothers were at the back of the group. They had the lowest level and were tacitly protected. This was not a taboo and was also a good tradition of the Taoist Academy. Du Yehu clenched his fists. He was not nervous, but excited and eager to try. Jiang Wang did not doubt that even if the 9 great demons were in front of him, he would dare to punch them without a word. Of course, whether he could beat them or not was another matter. At this time, there was a sudden exclamation from the outside of the formation. "What is that?" Another voice said with dissatisfaction, "Just ghosts. What is there to be afraid of?" But soon there was a shock. So many. Hearing this, Wei Yan suddenly turned his head and slashed with his sword. A huge sword aura swept across the sky, cutting the thick mist in the surroundings apart for an instant. And at this moment, everyone could see the entire street full of wandering ghosts stumbling and baring their fangs and claws. In broad daylight, hundreds of ghosts walked in daylight. Chapter 24. The enormous blade, energy, sliced through, and the thick fog parted and reformed. But the scene they saw in this short time was enough to cause fear. What was the background of this layer of thick fog? Why were wandering souls running amok in broad daylight? Where did so many ghosts come from? Even if all the people of Little Lin Town turned into malicious ghosts, it was impossible for there to be so many of them that they practically filled their field of vision. Of course, everyone already knew that with so many wandering ghosts, the entire Little Lin Town probably had no more living people. One of the 7 towns under Maplewood City's jurisdiction was gone. At this time, it was still Wei Yan's calm voice that sounded first, suppressing the chaos. Those skilled in fire element Dao techniques set up a line of fire 50 paces away from the team. The rest of you, kill the wandering souls within the line of fire in the shortest time possible. 5 element Dao techniques were the most basic Dao techniques, and there were many Shouja skilled in fire element. Following Wei Yan's order, puffs of flame ignited 50 paces away from the team. Then, under the guidance of Wei Yan's adjutant, these flames instantly joined together, drawing out a circular line of fire. Outside the circle of fire, the ghosts temporarily retreated, and the wandering souls that were drawn into the circle of fire also instantly went berserk. At this time, Li Jinxiu suddenly sheathed his flaming longsword. His hands formed a seal in front of his chin, and then he decisively slanted to the side. 2 blazing swords of flame appeared in his hands, just like that. The 2 swords were like swimming dragons, bringing him into the crowd of ghosts in an instant. 1 sword exterminating ghosts, 2 swords breaking souls. At the same time, A streak of sword energy circled around in a flash, and countless ghosts were gradually annihilated. The sword energy receded, and Jiang Wang's vigorous figure appeared. East Rising Purple Chi Sword Technique, the first move of the killing method. Everyone was shocked. They didn't think that this Xiuzha, who hadn't condensed Dao vortices, could use sword techniques to annihilate souls, and his efficiency was much higher than theirs. When Jiang Wang moved, Zhao Ruqing also moved. His long sword spun like lightning, cutting through a path of ghosts. Usually, they didn't see him work very hard, but his usage of East Rising Purple Chi Sword was actually not much worse than Jiang Wang's. Of the people present, only Du Yehu and Ling He looked at each other. The mortal martial arts they were proficient in were hardly effective against supernatural enemies like ghosts. If he were to simply activate his blood chi, he would be able to kill a few ghosts. However, how much blood chi would they have to activate when facing so many wandering souls? Actually, Jiang Wang did not hide the purple cloud East Rising sword art from them. It was just that Du Yehu believed in his own fists and did not rely on external objects, so he did not dare to be interested in the sword art. As for Ling He, it was probably due to his innate talent that his progress was slow. Until now, he had yet to master a killing technique and was unable to use it in actual combat. Back then, he was the only one among them who was as hardworking as Jiang Wang. He didn't fall behind because of his hard work. The situation on the field seemed to be good, but anyone with a discerning eye could see that it was critical. The ones that appeared so far were all normal wandering souls. Now that little forest town had gathered so many wandering souls for some unknown reason, there must be evil spirits and malicious spirits among them. There might even be ghost generals. This was no longer a situation that this small team could deal with. The best plan now was to quickly leave the battle. However, as the group continued forward, they had long lost their sense of direction in the thick fog. The ring of fire was surrounded by layers of ghosts. How could it be easy to break through? Wei Yin stepped out of the ring of fire, allowing the ghosts to swarm him and bite him. His old and mottled armor trembled slightly, and the ghosts that were about to latch onto him dissipated. However, there was no joy on his face. Instead, he stepped back into the ring of fire and said in a low voice, "Is there anyone who specializes in wind element Dao arts? Try to disperse this fog." Although he was asking the group, his gaze landed on Wang Zhangxiang. Compared to the 5 elements Dao arts of metal, wood, water, fire, and earth, wind element Dao arts were relatively unpopular. However, Wang Zhangxiang was an expert in this field. Wang Zhangxiang did not hesitate. He immediately drew a line in front of him with his fingers, using wind blades to clear the surrounding ghosts. Then his hands moved like butterflies, changing seals. Finally, he put his hands together in front of his lips. His index finger and middle finger were connected, and his thumb, ring finger, and pinky were placed together. In the triangular area formed by his middle finger and ring finger, he opened his mouth and breathed. The gentle breath passed through the finger area and suddenly became violent. It spun and grew at a speed visible to the naked eye and crashed into the thick fog. Like a violent divine dragon, it roared angrily in such a thick fog. Wind element Dao art, breath tornado. This wind was no ordinary wind. It was one of the 8 winds, the Eastern Mingshu wind. The Mingshu wind was the Mingshu wind. It was the right time to use it here. Even among 6th rank cultivators, not all of them could master such a powerful Dao art. However, Wang Zhangxiang was able to master this Dao art before opening the heaven and earth gate. It cannot be said to be weak. Wang Zhangxiang, who had completed the Dao art, was pale. Clearly, this Dao art was not a small burden for him. He barely stood. I'll leave the rest to you. Wherever the roaring tornado passed, the thick fog was dispersed. For the first time since everyone entered Shaolin Town, they could see this place clearly. There were candied Haas skewers leaning against the wall. The rice shop was connected to the soy sauce shop. The banners of the restaurant were still fluttering in the wind. It was as if nothing had changed, if not for those wandering souls. The wandering souls inside the ring of fire had been swept away. However, the wandering souls outside the ring were still lingering like ants. They were instinctively afraid of fire, but they were also instinctively reluctant to part with these living people who were full of vitality. "Oh no!" This exclamation sounded the alarm. Everyone only saw that the roaring tornado was about to pass by, and the thick fog in the distance was once again gathering. This kind of fog could not be dispersed even by the breath tornado. "Let's take this opportunity to withdraw first." Li Jinxiu held the roaring flame sword and suggested in a low voice. In the interval created by the breath tornado, everyone could already judge the direction. With the strength of this group, in the absence of the ghost general, they had a great chance to retreat safely. Wei Yin held his sword and stared at the approaching thick fog. No one knew what he was thinking. His adjutant also became anxious. "Sir, the situation in Shaolin Town is not something we can handle. We have to mobilize the army. Moreover, the people in Shaolin Town are all dead. It is meaningless for us to stay here." "How about?" Wei Yin interrupted him. "The ghosts we have seen so far are all ordinary wandering souls. None of them are sane. You have to know that there are so many ghosts here. This is not normal." Wang Zhangxiang frowned. "There are no cultivators who specialize in the art of controlling ghosts in Maplewood City. The things here should be handled by the city guards. Once the army arrives, the evil spirit will surge and these wandering souls will disperse. The Aqua tribe of Qingjiang has strange movements. The city guards went to suppress them. When they come back, it may be too late." Wei Yin had to reveal a very important news. Qingjiang was a big river that connected the entire Qinghai County. The Green Willow River outside Maplewood City was one of its tributaries. However, the Aqua tribe of Qingjiang had already made an agreement with the Zhuang Ting. Why would they suddenly have strange movements? Jiang Wang pondered in his heart. However, the strange movements meant that the Aqua tribe of Qingjiang had restrained themselves. However, the government could not ignore the big event that involved the entire Qinghai County. Therefore, it was reasonable for the city guards to mobilize everywhere. The devouring heart demon appeared. The Aqua tribe of Qingjiang had strange movements. The 100 ghosts of Shaolin Town traveled in daylight. These things seemed to be unrelated, but there was a pair of invisible hands that pinched them together. "Something is wrong." Wei Yin shook his head and made a decision. "Everyone, follow me and charge forward. If I don't stop, no one can stop. Those who are left behind, leave it to fate." He did not wait for others to dissuade him. As soon as he finished speaking, he stepped out of the fire circle with his sword and took the lead to charge into the depths of Shaolin Town. As his adjutant, Zhao Lang naturally did not hesitate to follow. Then Li Jinxiu and Wang Zhangxiang followed. They were all experienced. Although they did not agree with Wei Yan's decision, they knew that the power could not be divided at this time. In the end, the whole team was quickly mobilized. With Wei Yan as the arrowhead, they fiercely charged into the depths of Shaolin Town. Chapter 25. At this moment, Wei Yin truly displayed the strength of the second on Maplewood City's down merit list. He took the lead to charge into the depths of Xiaolin Town, almost crashing into the group of wandering souls. However, all the wandering souls were destroyed in one blow, and those who stood in their way scattered. His body seemed to be covered with a layer of cold light, which was a sign of the extreme concentration of metal elemental energy. His footsteps didn't stop at all, as if nothing could stop him. His long saber slashed and whistled, as if even the air was about to be cut. Everyone followed behind him. They only needed to prevent the ghosts on both sides from approaching, which greatly reduced the risk. Jiang Wang and Zhao Ruqing stood on the left and right, intentionally or unintentionally protecting Ling He and Du Yehu in the middle. Ling He was fine, but Du Yehu's face was flushed red. However, he also knew that this wasn't the time to act on impulse, so he could only move forward. After an unknown period of time, it was difficult to distinguish the direction in the slowly gathering thick fog. Even time seemed to be blurred. The wandering souls they encountered so far weren't strong, and they were within the range that a ninth-stage transcendent cultivator could deal with. However, these 8th-stage and 9th-stage cultivators didn't have enough Tao energy in the Tongtian Palace, so they couldn't fight for a long time. They were afraid that if they held on for a while, they wouldn't be able to use Tao techniques anymore. Otherwise, their Tao whirlpools would be damaged and their foundation would be damaged. Wei Yin stopped at this moment. According to the rough calculation, they would soon reach the center of Xiaolin Town. Jiang Wang remembered that there was a market there. Every time there was a market, people from the nearby villages would gather there, so it was very lively. Wei Yin stopped in front, not because he didn't want to move forward, but because a wall of fog was blocking the way, blocking his saber. Different from the thick fog along the way, this wall of fog had a substantial sense of existence and was very tough. With the sharpness of Wei Yan's saber, even an iron wall should be cut open, but this wall of fog didn't move. No matter how many attacks fell, it was like a stone sinking into the sea. Wei Yin was very anxious. He keenly felt that something wrong was happening behind this wall of fog. It wasn't a simple evil act, and it might even affect his life. However, he was in a dilemma where his saber was pointed. Does anyone have a way to break it? There's no harm in trying. Wei Yin said in a deep voice. The situation is urgent, and there's no time to delay. All the responsibility is mine. Immediately, a disciple walked in front of the fog wall and began to unbuckle his belt without saying a word. Hey, what are you doing? Someone pulled him back. Don't stop me. The man swore solemnly. There are many ghosts in this place, and the yin qi is heavy. The urine of a virgin boy can drive away evil spirits and suppress ghosts. I haven't lost my primordial yang to this day, so naturally I won't shirk my responsibility. This person's name was Huang Azin, and he was an inner disciple who had been selected in the previous batch. He was drinking buddies with Du Yehu. His personality was not bad, but his brain was not very good. Wei Yin frowns. When he finishes peeing, the fog wall doesn't move. Only the strong smell of urine reminded everyone of what had happened. That's not right. Is it because I don't have enough weight? This person held back for a while, then turned around and called out, Is there anyone else who is still a virgin? Come at me together. Of course, Zhao Ruqing doesn't need to come. Your yin qi is heavy. Du Yehu, come quickly. Don't hold yourself back. With your honor, you're destined to be a virgin until old age, and your yang qi will definitely be abundant. With one sentence, he mocked two people. If the situation wasn't urgent, Du Yehu would have already punched his dog head. Zhao Ruqing bared his teeth and said, Azin, think again. Is it because the urine of a virgin boy isn't enough, and what you need is a virgin boy's blood? Hearing this, Huang Azin rubbed his chin and nodded. He seemed to really consider the possibility. Wang Zhangxiang, who was still weak after using the tornado, said, When the tornado blew away the fog, I observed for a moment. The wandering souls in Little Forest Town formed a simple 9 palaces formation. At the time, I wasn't sure. Until now, when the middle palace is obstructed, I am sure of this. How we break it? Wei Yin was straightforward. The person who set up the formation didn't put too much effort into it. And with so many ghosts, it's hard to control them as one's own arm. So the way to break it is simple. Wang Zhangxiang said with a bitter smile, Break the formation eyes of the other 8 palaces, and the middle palace will break on its own. Wei Yin immediately said, Wang Zhangxiang stays here to observe the situation. The other 4 stay here to listen to his command and support everyone at any time. I will go to the Qin Palace myself. The rest of you will divide into 7 groups and break 1 palace each. Finally, we will gather in front of the middle palace. The heavens were divided. Yang came out, and Yin entered. Yang rose at midnight, Yin at noon. This was the 9 palaces of ether, starting from the Qin Palace. The Qin Palace was located in the north and belonged to the water element. For Wei Yin, it wasn't the easiest palace to deal with. However, he was strong enough that he didn't need to consider these things. I need to remind everyone of something. Wang Zhangxiang continued. The ghosts we've encountered along the way are all ordinary, but there are bound to be resentful ghosts or malicious ghosts at the formation eyes. Everyone must act according to your strength. Zhao Lang followed Wei Yan's lead and was the first to say, "So, I will go to the Kuan Palace." Li Jianxiu was even more straightforward. He had already headed west with his sword. "Leave the Jin Palace to me. You could divide the rest among yourselves." The strong stepped forward bravely and took responsibility. This was the backbone of cultivators. Jiang Wang, Ling He, and the others looked at each other. He said, "The four of us brothers will be in charge of the Sun Palace." He wasn't exaggerating when he said this. Everyone's combat strength could be seen along the way. Although he hadn't laid a foundation, his strength was slightly above that of ordinary ninth-rank cultivators by relying on the Eastern Purple Chi sword art. The Sun Palace belonged to the wood element. It was the right time to use metal to cut wood. The remaining Jun Palace, which belonged to the wood element, was already under Li Jianxiu's charge. It would be more difficult for him and Zhao Ruqing to perform in the other palaces. From another point of view, this kind of situation in Little Forest Town would definitely have a significant impact. They had recorded how much effort they had put in on this trip. Ling He, Du Yehu, and Zhao Ruqing were at a critical moment in accumulating Dao points to exchange for Meridian unlocking pills. If they could deal with one palace this time, it would definitely push them forward. Everyone's choices were strictly based on the order of the 9 palaces. For the 9 palaces, 2 and 4 were shoulders, 6 and 8 were feet, 3 on the left and 7 on the right. From 1 to 9, they were Kan, Kuan, Zhun, Sun, Zhong, Qian, Dui, Jin, and Li. Jiang Wang and Zhao Ruqing's extraordinary swordsmanship had long since been recognized by everyone. Thus, no one said anything. The remaining 20 Dao Academy disciples formed groups of 5 and chose the remaining 4 palaces. It had to be said that Wang Zhongxiang's breath tornado had contributed greatly. It had allowed everyone to find their way again in such a dense fog. This was the prerequisite for breaking the entire ghost formation. The Sun Palace was located in the southeast. Jiang Wang walked forward with his sword in hand. When he vaguely saw the restaurant in front of him, his heart settled. The only restaurant in Little Forest Town was located in the southeast. They had not gone the wrong way. "Be careful, Ling," he suddenly said. "I feel that there's something extremely dangerous up ahead." Ling He's intuition had always been very accurate. The others did not dare to be careless. Jiang Wang nodded. "That should be the resentful ghost that Senior Brother Wang mentioned. It also represents the formation core of the Sun Palace." "Ruqing, how many moves of the Eastern Purple Chi sword killing technique have you mastered?" "I've mastered all of them," Zhao Ruqing said. Jiang Wang did not have much to say about this guy's talent. He immediately commanded, "I'll make the first move later. You'll follow up. Immediately unleash your strongest attack. You must eliminate the target in the shortest time possible. Big brother and second brother, keep an eye on the surroundings. Don't let the other wandering souls rush over. If necessary, don't hesitate to unleash your blood chi." Before laying the foundation, if one had not mastered an extraordinary technique like the Eastern Purple Chi sword, the only way to cause harm to the ghost was to unleash one's blood chi. However, blood chi was the foundation of a person. Unleashing blood chi was extremely taxing on one's body. Thus, Ling He and Du Yehu had restrained themselves throughout the journey. However, they did not hesitate in the slightest when faced with Jiang Wang's command. This was the tacit understanding they had developed after fighting side by side countless times. Although they could not see too far in the fog, the brothers still quickly marked out the target area and spread out to surround it. Just then, a sharp whistle suddenly rang out, as if right next to their ears. In front of Jiang Wang, a flash of sword light suddenly lit up. Clang! Eastern Purple Chi sword, the first move of the killing technique. A scarlet claw happened to be blocked by the long sword, and the resentful ghost at the Sun Palace appeared in front of them. The wandering souls they had encountered along the way were actually not much different from humans when they were alive. It was just that their bodies were faint and their colors were pale. However, this resentful ghost was completely different. It already looked like a different kind of living creature. It had a green face and fangs, and it was almost 2 feet tall. It was tall and strong. The muscles on its body were bulging, and its claws were scarlet. One of the claws was even dripping with blood. Jiang Wang had long known that the resentful ghost perception would definitely be stronger than theirs in the thick fog. Thus, he had long been prepared for it, his sword ready to strike. This was how he was able to block the resentful ghost attack at the first moment. However, he had still underestimated the resentful ghost's strength. In the short interval created by the tornado, they had seen more than 1,000 wandering souls. However, only 8 malicious ghosts guarding the 9 palaces had appeared. Regardless of whether it was man-made, nurturing, or natural killing, the resentful ghosts born from this would definitely be extraordinary. Although Jiang Wang had blocked the first attack, another claw still brushed past him, tearing off a piece of flesh from his left arm. The drop of blood on the resentful ghost's claw had come from his wound. Fortunately, the wound was not considered big. Just as Jiang Wang was attacked and counterattacked, Zhao Ruqing's sword had also moved. The first style of the killing technique of the Eastern Purple Qi sword emphasized speed. This was how it could attack like thunder and defend like lightning. The moment the Son of Heaven was enraged, it shocked the world. Before the resentful ghost could even taste the torn piece of flesh, Zhao Ruqing's sword had already pierced its abdomen. Zhao Ruqing and his sword stabbed into the resentful ghost's body. Due to the difference in their sizes, it looked like a monkey hanging from human's body. The resentful ghost howled in pain and suddenly lowered its head. Not good. Zhao Ruqing was shocked. He stepped on the resentful ghost's claw and somersaulted in the air, abandoning his sword and escaping. The resentful ghost was still chasing after him, but Jiang Wang's figure had already flashed past its eyes like thunder. The second style of the killing technique of the Eastern Purple Qi sword was accurate. Jiang Wang was already far away, but the sword light had already flashed across the resentful ghost's eyeball. In that instant, the greenish-black liquid exploded like magma, and the resentful ghost let out an extremely shrill cry. This creature, whose consciousness had been muddled, was now using its remaining right eye to stare fiercely at Jiang Wang, overflowing with hatred. It decided not to cover its eye, allowing the greenish-black liquid to flow freely. With Zhao Ruqing's sword still stuck in its body, it charged at Jiang Wang with large strides. Ling He, who was chasing away the wandering souls outside the battle circle, hurriedly threw his sword at Zhao Ruqing. Catch! Zhao Ruqing leaped up and caught Ling He's sword in midair. Like a shooting star catching up with the moon, he once again shot behind the resentful ghost. This time, the sword pierced through the resentful ghost's neck, the tip of the sword piercing through its chin and pressing against its chest. The resentful ghost howled and clawed back. Due to the angle, this claw was definitely slower than before. Therefore, Zhao Ruqing pressed his feet against its back, wanting to use the momentum to pull out his sword and retreat. However, he did not expect that the sword would be firmly clamped by the resentful ghost's muscles. Unable to pull it out, he slowed down for a moment. It was at this moment that the resentful ghost's huge claws ruthlessly swept across his body, sending Zhao Ruqing flying a full 4 to 5 meters into the thick fog. Whether he was dead or alive was unknown. One had to know that at this moment, there were still countless wandering souls wandering in the thick fog. At this moment, Jiang Wang was on the opposite side. Ling He was still tangling with the wandering souls after delivering the sword. Only Du Yehu, who was also guarding the battle circle, was the closest. He had long since been unable to hold himself back. He had come on this trip to exterminate evil and cleanse the universe. He definitely did not come to be protected by a lowly down master or even become a burden. Only a furious roar could be heard, and it was as loud as thunder. Du Yehu's entire body erupted with qi and blood. The qi and blood on his body seemed to have substance as they shot up into the sky. In that instant, it was like a smoke signal. Qi and blood smoke signal. Only martial artists whose qi and blood had reached a certain level could activate qi and blood smoke signal. Even Jiang Wang could not do this. And Du Yehu's full power eruption was enough to prove that he was not inferior to others. Wrapped in the solid qi and blood power, he seemed to be draped in a blood-red battle robe. With a speed several times faster than usual, he rushed to Zhao Ruqing's side in a few steps. Chapter 26. The thick fog was unable to block out such a brilliant scarlet light. Zhao Ruqing had just climbed up from the ground when the swarm of wandering souls was about to drown him. But Du Yehu had arrived. He didn't even need to move. His thick blood and qi energy caused all the wandering souls to disperse. Du Yehu was extremely straightforward. He grabbed Zhao Ruqing's collar and dragged him to Ling He's side. After taking a vicious swipe from the vengeful ghost's claw, the older brothers were all worried. Only Zhao Ruqing himself didn't seem to be injured at all. He shouted angrily, Hey, I can walk on my own." Du Yehu didn't care. Halfway there, he tossed the noisy Zhao Ruqing to Ling He. At the same time, he turned around and smashed his fist, wrapped in thick blood and qi energy, towards the vengeful ghost. Ignoring the fact that Ling He had leapt into the air to catch Zhao Ruqing, just Du Yehu's fist was enough. Compared to the Eastern purple qi sword technique, the fist technique he cultivated wasn't powerful enough. Even in the Tao Academy's outer sect, he was neglected, but when he used it, it was exceptionally violent. This fist wasn't aimed at finding an opening. Instead, it met the vengeful ghost's huge claw head-on, meeting force with force, attack with attack. It was truly unyielding and unstoppable. The blood and qi energy wrapped around the iron fist and collided with the huge greenish-black claw. For a moment, they were locked in a stalemate. At this moment, Jiang Wang had already leapt forward. With a flash of his sword, he had already sliced open the vengeful ghost's other eye. Retreat. Jiang Wang retreated as soon as he succeeded. Du Yehu also leapt back. The blind, vengeful ghost became even more violent. Its huge claws clawed wildly, stirring up strong winds in the surroundings. When its attacks were slightly exhausted, Jiang Wang turned around and charged forward once more. His long sword drew a beautiful arc in the air and floated towards the vengeful ghost's right claw like a falling leaf. It was almost silent, but when it came into contact with a greenish-black claw, it exploded with an incomparably sharp howl. The third style of the Eastern purple qi sword technique was sharp. With just one strike, the vengeful ghost's right claw was severed. Jiang Wang didn't linger in the battle. He even began to retreat as soon as he drew his sword. The resentful ghost lost its vision and could only vent its anger on the air in front of it. At this time, Du Yehu, who was burning with qi and blood, had already turned around and leapt high into the air. He held his right hand with his left hand, and his hands were like hammers, fiercely smashing into the resentful ghost's ferocious head. Boom! Blood qi smoke was the bane of ghosts in the first place, not to mention how ferocious Du Yehu's attack was. The fist that was wrapped in layers of qi and blood instantly exploded the vengeful ghost's head. Du Yehu couldn't dodge in time and was splashed with dark green blood, but it was quickly incinerated by the power of qi and blood. It wasn't until the headless body of the resentful ghost fell that the red light on Du Yehu's body receded, and his face instantly turned pale. Jiang Wang leaped to Du Yehu's side and held him up. Brother Hu, this vitality was the foundation of a human being. Now that Jiang Wang was condensing Tao essence, he had to start from the supply of qi and blood. Du Yehu's previous strength was burning himself every moment. He wasn't a martial artist who specialized in martial arts, so he couldn't lock in such boundless qi and blood. He would need at least 5 years of recuperation to recover from this battle. 5 years at the beginning of cultivation was a long time, not to mention the problem of qi and blood starting to decline after reaching a certain age. If he was one step slower, he would be slower all the time. This could mean that he would be cut off from transcendence from then on. But Du Yehu still didn't hesitate at all. He couldn't think so much at the juncture of life and death. The more subconscious a choice like this was, the more it could prove his true nature. It's a small matter. Duyahu secretly adjusted his breathing and recovered some strength. He pushed Jiang Wang away. I haven't reached the point where I can't walk yet. Let's go. The situation in the Central Palace is definitely more dangerous. He was filled with worry, but it wasn't convenient for him to say anything at this time. He turned Zhao Ruqing onto his back and stepped forward to pick up his sword from the corpse of the resentful ghost. He silently guarded Du Yehu's side. He had also burned his qi and blood earlier, but it was only a small amount and didn't affect his foundation. Thus, he still had the strength to fight for his life. Jiang Wang was the only one of the four with the strongest battle strength intact. Of course, he had to be flexible so that he could act at any time. So he only walked in front with his sword, with no intention of lending a hand. Only Zhao Ruqing was still muttering and complaining. Boss is still the most considerate. This tiger is so clumsy. Really, carrying me like carrying a chicken. What's the meaning of this? If Miss Miaoyu finds out, won't my heroic image be ruined? Miaoyu was now the top hostess of 3 Fragrances brothel. She was also the most popular girl in the entire Maplewood City's brothel. Zhao Ruqing had already spent over 1,000 taels of silver in 3 Fragrances brothel to get close to her, but he still hadn't succeeded. Du Yehu didn't say a word. It wasn't that he didn't want to beat him up, or at least scold him, but he really didn't have the strength. Enough, enough, Jiang Wang said impatiently. Other than wandering souls without intelligence, they're only disordered, resentful ghosts. Who do you want to show your image to? Who can say for sure? Zhao Ruqing became excited instead. He lay on Ling He's back and gestured. What if there's a beautiful female ghost hiding somewhere spying on me? Originally, it was a good romantic encounter, but it was ruined just like that. Can this tiger bear this loss? Du Yehu sat up in shock, almost on the verge of death. He exploded with a trace of his remaining strength to beat up this guy with a loose mouth. Before he could explode, Ling had already used the sword hilt to poke upwards. Hiss! Zhao Ruqing sucked in a breath of cold air, and his arrogance immediately disappeared. Behind a thick fog wall, at the center of Little Forest Town, which was also the central palace of the 9 Palaces formation, a huge whirlpool was slowly rotating. It was impossible to see where this place used to be. Everything disappeared in this silent whirlpool. Other than this whirlpool, there was nothing else. The center of the whirlpool was pure black, as if it could suck in people's line of sight. No one could escape from it. Beside the whirlpool stood 4 cultivators with long breaths. Each of them was full of Tao energy. All of them wore black robes and looked straight ahead. Not far in front of the whirlpool, there was a house that had already been smashed to pieces. There was nothing left except for a brick wall. The woman in red leaned against this wall, her expression languid. Her body was wrapped tightly, but it gave off an endless temptation. She held a small oval mirror in her hand. The mirror did not reflect her beautiful face, but the figures fighting with the resentful ghosts in the 9 Palaces formation. This batch of disciples from Maplewood City's Tao Academy isn't that good. Only those few sword techniques are not bad. The woman in red muttered, and put away the mirror with a flip of her hand. All right, it's time. If I knew it would go so smoothly, I would have taken a nap. The woman in red yawned as Bien Pingting walked in front of the whirlpool. So sleepy. Walking in front of this mysterious whirlpool, her expression became slightly more serious. She turned sideways and bowed in a proper manner. Welcome, elder. The 4 black-robed cultivators followed her and bowed. Then a white-haired old man walked out from the thick fog. This old man's face was wrinkled like the bark of an old tree. His eyes were also very turbid. His back was hunched, and his steps were even unsteady. However, as he walked over, his back straightened inch by inch. His entire aura was constantly rising. He ignored the woman in red and the others. He only stared at the whirlpool, as if he was staring at his eternal love. His gaze was incomparably sincere. When he walked in front of the whirlpool, his aura was already as deep as the sea. It was so oppressive that it was difficult to breathe. The woman in red lowered her head even more. The white-haired old man folded his ring finger and pinky finger. His thumb, index finger, and middle finger formed a triangle over his heart. He softly chanted, "At the bottom of the river of forgetfulness, at the abyss of the yellow springs." The return of the venerable god to the world, illuminating the world. Then he took out a white bone dagger and directly stabbed it into the top of his head. His entire body fell straight into the whirlpool. Chapter 27. Many people would think of the Clear River Manor as the richest place in Qinghe County, not the Chui clan, Lin clan, or the governor's manor. This was because the treasures and wealth of the entire Qing River's 700 miles of water area were all gathered in the Water Manor. Its extravagance and luxury were often heard of by the world. The manor sat at the bottom of Qingjiang and suppressed the waters within 700 miles. The buildings continued to rise and fall. It could be said that they were filled with treasures and pearls. In a side hall, a handsome man in a luxurious robe sat on the throne and sipped tea. Below him, a messenger wearing a white bone mask said angrily, "Young master, this is not what we agreed on. We have sacrificed so much. Why did the Qingjiang clan only swim on the river?" The man in the luxurious robe clicked his tongue. "Oh, this jade tea is indeed good. It nourishes the mind. Messenger, are you sure you don't want a drink?" The emissary was probably tired from talking. He raised the fragrant tea beside him and finished it in one gulp. He continued, "Everyone knows that Clear River Manor has always been trustworthy. Back then, His Excellency fought for Zhuang Chengqian's promise and dyed the Lan River red. It is still praised today. Why are you going back on your words? Aren't you afraid of tarnishing His Excellency's reputation?" The Lan River was a large river in the Yong territory. The messenger was talking about the founding battle of the Zhuang kingdom. The Yong kingdom attacked with both land and water to destroy the Zhuang kingdom. It was His Excellency of the Clear River Manor who fought and defeated the Yong kingdom's navy on the Lan River. At that time, blood dyed the river red and the boats could not stop. This resolved the worries of the Zhuang kingdom's founding ancestor, Zhuang Changqian. He was able to give it his all and successfully founded the kingdom. The alliance between the Clear River Manor and the Zhuang country continued to exist until today. The man in the luxurious robe placed the teacup on the table. Although he was smiling, the atmosphere was completely different. "Messenger, you reminded me. My father and the Zhuang emperor had an alliance. If I agree to help you, wouldn't I be going against my father's trust? That would be unfilial." "Guards!" The man in the luxurious robe knocked on the table. A guard called, "Pass down the order. Order Yu Yang's troops to retreat 3 miles. Do not disturb the creatures on the shore." "Young master." The messenger with the white bone mask stood up angrily. "Stop acting." The man in the luxurious robe raised a finger in front of his face. His expression was indifferent. "Now the entire army of Qinghe County is on guard against us. They dare not leave. You can do whatever you want to do at your leisure. You've already achieved your goal, so don't be so greedy. Let's make a deal beforehand. You just have to come ashore and harass them." The man in luxurious robes interrupted him. "Do you think it's possible for us to go ashore? Once the Water Clan leaves the water, it's just like you humans leave the land. Both of you have lost your foundation. Unless you can really make me make up my mind to fight against Zhuang Ting. But do you have the ability to do that?" The emissary's face was hidden under the white bone mask, so his expression could not be seen clearly, but his voice was almost squeezed out from between his teeth. "What I gave you was an entire Dragon Ball. It is indeed a valuable gift." The young master of the Clear River Manor smiled with satisfaction. "But this is the best I can do." Seeing that there was no turning back, the messenger with the white bone mask left in a huff. When he was the only one left in the side hall, the man in luxurious robes sneered. "You're just a coward. How dare you talk about credibility with me?" At this moment, a dignified voice rang in his ears, but the owner of the voice did not appear. "Qingwei, tell me your thoughts." The young master of the Clear River Manor, Song Qingwei, restrained the arrogance in his eyes and sat upright. Zhuang Ting and the Clear River Manor have been in an alliance for hundreds of years, and they've become increasingly arrogant. Now this Zhuang Gaoxian is even more ridiculous. He really treats us as his subjects. Previously, he sent a message to ask for Qingji's hand in marriage on behalf of his son. Nominally, he said something about respecting her as the crown princess and forming an eternal friendship. I can't agree to this. When Aunt married Zhuang Changxian, not only did she work hard, but she was also schemed against and died in the cold palace. How can I let my sister make the same mistake again? I'm looking for an opportunity to make a move and let that Zhuang kid know who's in charge of the waters. But I have to be careful. After all, the human race is powerful now. Even if I overturn this Zhuang Ting, the other countries' monarchs might not be able to do the same. The 30,000 navy cruising the clear river is just right. It's a pleasant surprise that the White Bone Paths people came and gave us the Dragon Pearl. That dignified voice sighed. Your aunt and Zhuang Chengqian were in love with each other back then. It's not that I want a marriage alliance. Forget it. Let's not talk about this. Qingji, what's your plan? Song Qingyuan muttered. Now that we're in a bad situation with the Clear River County chief, and that Zhuang Gaoxian is shameless, it's not easy to stay in Clear River City. But Qingji is still in the process of becoming a monk. My intention is to send her to Maplewood City to study for a period of time. That voice asked again, why Maplewood City? We can't hide it from you, father. Song Qinghua said, the White Bone Path is even willing to give us the Dragon Pearl this time. There must be a huge movement in Maplewood City that's enough to shake the entire Zhuang territory. But this way, Maplewood City will be the most peaceful in the future. It's perfect for studying. Secondly, it's also my idea. If Qingji goes to Maplewood City, we can openly send people to protect her. Maplewood City is small, and there aren't many experts there. They won't be able to disturb us. I'll look for traces of the White Bone Path while I'm at it and find out more about them. I feel like there's a huge secret behind the revival of the White Bone Path. Furthermore, the White Bone Path has a long history, so they must have a lot of good stuff. Everyone has the right to kill evil people. One dragon pearl can't satisfy me. That dignified voice didn't comment on Song Qingyue's meticulous plan. He only said, the water manners matters have been given to you. Do as you see fit. Yes. Song Qingyue nodded. All right. I've already sent people to send the Dragon Pearl to your seclusion room. Remember to refine it. I've seen the Dragon Pearl. I've already erased some of the tricks inside. Don't worry and use it. It can save you 1,000 years of effort. As for me, I'm already sick and have no hope of becoming a dragon. Your aunt has already been dead for 217 years and 3 months. Zhuang Changxian has also been dead for 200 years. There aren't many of my old friends left. I'm still alive, but that's all. I'm just protecting you for a while. Although the Dragon Pearl is good, it's useless to me. The voice became softer and softer. Finally, it turned into a sigh and disappeared in the side hall. Song Qinghua gently leaned on the high chair. He suddenly felt dispirited. The bone-masked messenger left the water manor and boarded a small boat. The boat seemed to be made of bones, but it was bottomless. However, it moved very quickly in the water. If it encountered any fish or crab that couldn't dodge in time, it would just run over them. There wasn't even a trace of blood. The bottomless bone boat quickly emerged from the water. The messenger went ashore. It turned around and left in the water. No one knew where it went. The messenger moved quickly. Although his steps were fast, his feet didn't touch the dust. He seemed to know the route of the Qinghe County Army's garrison like the back of his hand. He moved freely between the garrisons and quickly left this place. He went up a mountain. This mountain looked like a bull's head from afar, but it was beautiful up close. The messenger walked to a stone wall. He didn't stop and directly crashed into it. There was a completely different world inside. All kinds of bloody and terrifying murals covered the two sides. The long tunnel was even paved with green bricks. When a messenger came in, someone asked, "How is it?" The bone-masked man said hatefully, "That bastard Song Qingyue swallowed the bait, but he only lightly brushed past the hook." That person said, "That old bastard Song Hengjiang isn't dead yet. He won't let Song Qingyue mess around. We didn't expect them to really fall out with the Zhuang Ting anyway. Even so, I still feel disgusted. That's the Dragon Pearl. It has been extinct since the Middle Ages. Each one is rarer than the last. The bone-masked man sighed. Once the matter of Little Lin Town is settled, our goal has been achieved. We don't have to care about these trivial matters. Furthermore, I'm afraid that the little bastard won't be able to adapt to our dragon pearl. He thinks that he can play with the White Bone sect, but he doesn't know. The bone-masked man said viciously. When the Daozi appears, the first thing he will do is slaughter the water manor of Qingjiang. He will turn the entire Qingjiang into bones. Chapter 28. Xiaolantown. Zhao Ruqing and Du Yehu had lost their ability to fight. He was carrying Zhao Ruqing on his back, so only Jiang Wang could fight on the way back to the Central Palace. Fortunately, he was already quite experienced in dealing with those wandering souls. His Eastern Purple Qi sword was becoming more and more skillful in this kind of continuous battle. He didn't have to worry about his physical strength. Since returning from Tangxi Town, he had accumulated more than 70 Dao energy beads. Although each bead was used before the formation of the Dao vortex, each bead could give him enough feedback when it came to a critical moment, so he didn't have much pressure to support this kind of intense battle. In fact, these Dao energy beads were his trump card when he decided to break the Sun Palace with the 4 of them. However, he didn't expect Zhao Ruqing to be in danger and Du Yehu to be so decisive. I say, don't always look so sad. After walking for a while, Zhao Ruqing couldn't help but say, isn't it just excessive qi and blood loss? It's not like there's no way to remedy it. What way? Du Yehu didn't say anything, but he was the first to get excited. He held Zhao Ruqing's hand and shook him vigorously. Quickly say it. Jiang Wang couldn't help but glance at him while cleaning up the wandering souls. He really wanted to give him 2 slashes. This kid, if he had a way, why didn't he say it earlier? Hey, you're making my handsome head dizzy. Zhao Ruqing comforted his temporary mount with great difficulty and continued. I happen to know that a few days ago, someone bought a foundation pill from the Yun Nation at high price and was about to resell it. This pill has a miraculous effect in nourishing qi and blood and stabilizing the foundation. Some aristocratic children take a foundation pill before opening their meridians. This way, after opening their meridians, the true spirit of their Dao meridians will be more agile. Not to mention Du Yehu's qi and blood loss. I just don't know. He even raised the corner of his mouth. Will some people be willing to buy it? Du Yehu paused for a moment and said in a low voice, I don't have money. You can borrow money from me. According to the industry rules, 90% and 13% returns, Zhao Ruqing said with a smile. Usury is okay. Brother who likes usury. Du Yehu smiled in a seemingly simple and honest manner. All right. Jiang Wang's forehead was filled with black lines. In the entire Maplewood City, who didn't know that Du Yehu was famous for not paying back his loans? In Tiger Du's words, these loan sharks were not good people anyway. They would try their best to cheat some money for alcohol. If not for the fact that he was from the Dao Academy, he would have been thrown into the moat. Little 5, who is that person? How much do you want to sell it for? Jiang Wang had secretly decided that no matter how much that person offered, he would find a way to raise enough money. The person who bought the foundation consolidating pill is actually surnamed Zhao. Don't you think it's a coincidence? Zhao Ruqing pretended to sigh. What's even more coincidental is that he's actually one of my people. What a coincidence! Jiang Wang took a deep breath and warned himself that old Fifth was seriously injured and could easily be beaten to death. Only then did he control his impulse to hit him. This brat had been beating around the bush for half a day. In the end, all he wanted to say was that he had a core consolidating pill at home, which could make up for Du Yehu's loss. Just this one sentence was enough to keep her brothers in suspense for half an incense stick of time. Even someone as generous as he felt his gums hurt. However, with this guarantee, everyone felt more at ease. As they spoke, they had already returned to the Central Palace. Li Jinxiu and Zhao Lang were already waiting there, discussing something with Wang Zhangxian. There were a few other senior and junior brothers present, but they weren't in good condition. Wei Yin had gone to the central palace to provide support. That was the only formation point that hadn't been broken yet. Junior brother Jiang did well. Li Jianxiu casually greeted him. Wang Zhangxiang also nodded at him. I'm ashamed. It's all thanks to brother Yehu and Zhao Ruqing's outburst. Jiang Wang smiled bitterly. In front of the main forces, he decisively gave up the credit. The most important thing at this stage was to help them successfully open their meridians. The reason why he didn't mention Ling He was because Du Yehu and Zhao Ruqing's condition was more convincing. Ling He didn't mind. Li Jianxiu and the others were all experienced and knew Du Yehu's condition at a glance. They were also shocked by the strength of his blood. When Wei Yin returns, we will go straight to the central palace. Wang Zhangxiang said. This time, everyone fought bravely and did well. Maplewood City will not forget your contributions. The Dao College will not forget your contributions. Yes. As they spoke, Wei Yin walked out of the thick fog, followed by 3 Dao College disciples. There were still 2 disciples who hadn't appeared. It looked like they were already unfortunate. The fierce battle didn't stop at the central palace. Other than Wei Yin and Li Jianxiu, who dealt with the resentful ghosts almost unharmed, the other teams all suffered casualties. 11 people died, nearly half of them dead. Almost everyone who was still alive was injured. Even Zhao Lang's stomach was almost cut open, leaving a hideous wound on his abdomen. If Wang Zhangxiang hadn't been in charge of the central palace in time, this operation might not have been successful. Wei Yin said solemnly, if we can return from this battle, I will be the first to ask for credit for everyone. I didn't expect this battle to be so dangerous. But now that Maplewood City's combat power is empty, only you can put up a fight. Speaking of this, he bent down and bowed. On behalf of the souls of Little Forest Town who died in vain, on behalf of the people of Maplewood City, I thank you for your blood. Brother Wei, you're too serious. Li Jianxiu said. Everyone turned sideways, unwilling to accept this bow. General Wei, what are you talking about? You're from Maplewood City. Don't we grow up here? Du Yehu said discontentedly. Don't talk about empty etiquette here. This matter should not be delayed. In such a weak state, this guy still didn't hide his heroism. Wei Yin looked at him deeply and turned around with his saber. This shitty is right. Everyone, follow me and charge. Let's take a look and see what kind of demon is tormenting our fellow villagers here. Since the 8 palaces were broken, the fog wall at the central palace lost its foundation and collapsed silently, no longer blocking the way. But the thick fog still didn't disperse, still blocking their vision. Wei Yin took the lead. Li Jianxiu and Wang Zhangxiang protected him on his left and right. Zhao Lang was injured, but his fighting strength was mostly intact. He sat at the back of the group. The group was on full alert as they explored the central palace. At this point, there was no need to say more about the danger of Little Forest Town. After experiencing the danger of killing the resentful ghosts in the other 8 palaces, everyone had imagined the danger of the central palace. If the evil demons in Little Forest Town had any plans, they would be in the central palace. This group could be said to represent the hope of Maplewood City's younger generation. If they all died here, the entire Dao Academy of Maplewood City would have no successor. But no one said anything about retreating. The road ahead was indeed dangerous and frightening. But this was their hometown. They were born here, grew up here, learned here, and were willing to die here. Other than Zhao Ruqing and Du Yehu, there were 3 other academy disciples who had lost their fighting strength. Little Forest Town was so dangerous, of course they couldn't leave them where they were. Thus, Ling He still carried Zhao Ruqing forward in the group. As Du Yehu's old drinking buddy, Huang Azan also protected him. Unlike Du Yehu, who was on the verge of collapse, Huang Azan was full of energy. In the previous battle, he was one of the few who had been unharmed. It could be seen that he had some strength and wasn't just a show-off. As the group was advancing, Huang Azan suddenly stopped. He sniffed hard and said, I smell a fragrance. The group then stopped. He then said, it's a woman's rouge. No, it's her body fragrance. Everyone looked over. He added, it's a beautiful woman. Du Yehu said exasperatedly, Is that a dog's nose? Ah, a beautiful female ghost. Zhao Ruqing instantly became excited. Didn't I say there was? Tiger do. Compensate me for this beautiful encounter. No one paid attention to these two buffoons, because they had already reached the center of Little Forest Town and saw the enormous moving whirlpool. Other than that, there was nothing else in the Central Palace. The red-dressed woman, the white-haired old man, and the black-robed Xiuzha seemed to have never appeared. It wasn't just that they didn't exist. There were no people, no animals, not even a brick or tile. Other than the endless mist, there is only this strange and lonely whirlpool. How come the government here is gone? What is this whirlpool? No one could answer this question. Only Wang Zhangxiang's eyes were wide in shock. Brother Wang, you recognize it? Wei Yin asked in a deep voice as he held his blade warily. But he quickly had an answer to his question. Because from the deep darkness at the center of the whirlpool, a pitch-black object slowly came out. Seeing pitch black from the darkness, this was a very awkward description. But this was the case. The pitch-black object seemed to be the center of the darkness, allowing everyone to see its appearance clearly. As it slowly rose from the whirlpool, its full appearance gradually appeared in front of everyone. It was a stone-decorated archway. The design was not grand, just 3 rooms, 4 pillars, and 7 floors. If one ignored the pitch-black texture and the scene it appeared in, then it was no different from the decorated archways people usually saw. However, the plaque in the middle of the decorated archway had already shown how extraordinary it was. There were 3 words written on it. No one present recognized the characters, but everyone understood the meaning at first glance. Ghost, door, gate. Chapter 29. The Gates of Hell, which existed in the depths of the 9 underworlds and represented the boundary between life and death, had actually appeared in the world of the living. Thus, the thick fog that had not dissipated all this time had an explanation. The fog was not man-made, but a natural condensation of the laws of heaven and earth, because the netherworld and the blue sky did not meet. The gates of hell had appeared in the world of the living, so there had to be a cover. The wandering souls that had gathered here, far more than the number of living people in Shaolin Town, suddenly had a reason for their appearance. The wandering souls drew closer to the gates of hell. This was an instinct that had nothing to do with consciousness. All the wandering souls in Maplewood City had probably gathered here, and it could be foreseen that as long as the gates of hell still existed, the number of wandering souls would only increase and become stronger. But why would the gates of hell appear here? Wei Yin almost did not hesitate. After understanding the meaning of the 3 words gates of hell, he took out a bright red, simple-looking incense and handed it to Zhao Lang. Quick! Of course, he had brought firestones with him, and he was not unfamiliar with fire element Taoist techniques. But he was not as fast as Zhao Lang. He had been partners with Wei Yin for many years, so there was no need to talk about their tacit understanding. At the same time that the bright red incense was handed over, Zhao Lang had already rubbed his fingers together, and a cluster of flames leapt onto the incense, burning the not-so-small incense in an extremely short amount of time. Only then did he say with a somewhat unsightly expression, "You only have this one red incense on you." The incense in the Zhuang Guojun army was divided into 3 types: black, red, and yellow. Only people who had reached a certain status could possess them, and they were rare strategic items. Once a black letter was ignited, the entire country would fight to the death. There were not many people in the entire Zhuang Guojun who had the qualifications to ignite a black letter. When a yellow letter was completely burned, it meant that the person who ignited the letter was in a desperate situation. And the red letter between the 2 represented the danger of the city being destroyed and the land being lost. Once a red letter was ignited, the entire Maplewood City would be shaken, and it would certainly alarm Wei Qiuji. Currently, the city guard and the arrest department were all tied up in Maplewood City, and Wei Qiuji was overseeing the city lord's mansion. Was Shaolin Town, which had not had any enemies other than wandering souls, worth Wei Qiuji personally making a trip? Or, if Wei Yan's judgment was wrong, because if Wei Qiuji's movements caused problems in Maplewood City, could he bear this responsibility? But there was no need to think about these questions in front of those 3 words, because it was the gates of hell. It appeared in countless legends and was a miniature version of the mythological era. In fact, when the red shadow suddenly lit up in front of him, Wei Qiuji, the master of the city, had already risen from the ground without hesitation. He soared into the sky, and his entire body was wrapped in a whirlwind. He howled as he flew toward Little Forest Town. Almost at the same time, Dong, who was meditating, suddenly opened her eyes. No matter what, Maplewood City had to have an expert of this level overseeing it. Since Wei Qiuji had gone, he could not leave. He didn't move, but his dignified voice had already spread out from outside the room. Order all disciples that can be notified, no matter what mission or cultivation they are carrying out, they are to immediately stop and return to Maplewood City. It was true that the Tao Academy nurtured the hope of the Zhuang country. Before that, there was a long process of growth. But when the country was in danger, everyone had to fight for it. Vice Dean Song Qifeng, who was also in the Tao Academy, was sitting cross-legged in front of an alchemy cauldron. He was waving a fan in his hand as he took care of the fire. He sighed very softly. I'm getting old. In Little Forest Town, Wei Yan didn't stop after lighting up the red shadow. Instead, he immediately swung his saber horizontally. The sharp saber light almost sliced through the air before dissipating into the archway. That's right, it disappeared without a trace, without the slightest ripple. The following attacks were the same. Whether it was raging flames or gales, any Taoist technique that struck, it was like throwing a stone into the ocean. Ling Yi even threw his own sword over, but it also disappeared without a trace. It was as if it didn't exist. Not only did it not exist, but everything that came into contact with it also didn't exist. Huang Azan stood in front of the gates of hell and hesitated for a long time. He was extremely stubborn and confident in his virgin urine, but when he saw Ling He's sword vanish as well, he regretfully chose to give up. This vortex should be connected to the netherworld. With so many people dying here, our attacks will all land in the netherworld, not in the modern realm. Wang Zhangxiang frowned and analyzed. What appears in front of us should be the reflection of the gates of hell. In fact, the reflection hasn't even condensed yet. It hasn't condensed yet? Jiang Wang had seen the words on the board before in the great illusionary realm. He knew that they were Taoist words, words that explained the laws of heaven and earth. He had been thinking about what the gates of hell in Xiaolin Town represented. It was only now that he heard Wang Zhangxiang's analysis that he was shocked. Then, when would the real reflection of the gates of hell be condensed, and in what way? And what would it bring to this place in the end? They soon had an answer. It was the countless wandering souls that filled Xiaolin Town. They had been killed and eradicated along the way. But now, they were swarming over and gathering in the center. The group couldn't care about anything else. They could only repeat the same trick. After retreating a distance, they used fire Taoist techniques to draw a circle, and the group defended themselves. If someone could see through the fog and look down from the sky, they would see countless wandering souls charging over under the attraction of some kind of power. The mighty river of wandering souls was like 100 rivers flowing into the sea. The disciples from Maplewood City's Tao College, as well as Wei Yin and Zhao Lang, were like bitter reefs that had been washed away by the river. They couldn't move, couldn't resist, and couldn't see the end. The wandering souls of the entire Maplewood City region have been attracted. Maybe we're going to die here? Wang Zhangxiang smiled bitterly. These wandering souls weren't considered powerful. They could come and go freely in the array. But the premise was that these wandering souls only wandered without intelligence and instinctively attacked when people approached. Now, these wandering souls were gathering in one place, and they were blocking the way. There were too many, almost endless. At least in Wang Zhangxiang's vision, they couldn't see the end of the wandering souls. What they didn't know was that if only the wandering souls of the dead in Xiaolin Town over the years had gathered here, at the same time, they were attracting souls from further away. Now, the wandering souls of the entire Maplewood City region that hadn't dispersed were gathering here. They were moving at a speed that was far beyond what they could reach. The dense threads of wandering souls streaked across the sky. In the spirit vision of the entire Maplewood City region, it was a scene that moved countless experts like a spider web. No, Wei Yan's voice was a little cold, and so was his heart. The city lord will be here soon. No one knew how much he didn't want to ignite the red letter. He didn't want that person to see him weakly asking for help. But he couldn't. In the face of a legendary existence like the gates of hell, he couldn't gamble the safety of the entire Maplewood City for his own self-esteem. Jiang Wang also watched the wandering souls that bypassed the reef and rushed to the gates of hell, but were instantly absorbed and digested. His mood was complicated and indescribable. These wandering souls probably didn't have intelligence, so they didn't struggle, didn't howl, and didn't seem to have any regrets or pain. However, they were all once living people. They were all souls that should have rested in peace, the souls of the living. Among them, maybe someone had brushed past him, or someone he had known, or his neighbors, his grandparents, or his father. His eyes were wide open as he searched for his better-than father amidst the dense crowd of wandering souls. The man who wasn't tall, but had always supported him in the sky. Those wandering souls flashed and disappeared, like lightning flashing in all directions. He only stared in the direction of Fengshi Town. His eyes were red, but he couldn't see them at all. He had always lived alone, and he didn't want to show weakness. Later, he lived with an aunt, and he had to be strong as an older brother. He almost never said it, but really he missed him. Jiang Wang wanted to see him again, but he was afraid of seeing him. He was afraid of the powerlessness in front of the gates of hell. Suddenly, it seemed to reach a critical point, and the mighty river of wandering souls was instantly cleared by some kind of power. The phantom of the gates of hell, above the whirlpool, was incomparably clear and concrete. In the next moment, Maplewood City Lord Wei Qiuji fell from the sky, wrapped in a hurricane. But the phantom of the gates of hell also flashed and disappeared at the same time. Vaguely, Jiang Wang seemed to feel a breeze brush past his cheeks, but after a moment, everything in front of him changed. The huge whirlpool disappeared, and the fog that gathered in Little Forest Town immediately dispersed. Everything dissipated, and the netherworld and sky disappeared. Chapter 30. What a thief! Wei Qiuji's expression was so gloomy that water could almost drip from it, almost right under his nose. That unknown enemy used the living beings of Xiaolin Town as sacrifices and consumed the souls that should have rested in peace in the entire Maplewood City to condense the phantom of the gates of hell in one fell swoop. In the end, he easily escaped in front of him, and he, Wei Qiuji, a dignified rank, 5-grade expert, had rushed over with all his might, but he did not even get a fart. As the city lord, he had failed in his duty. As a powerhouse, he had been slapped in the face. When had he ever suffered such humiliation? So trash. With a backhand slap, Wei Qiuji sent Wei Yan flying several meters away. None of the dozens of people present dared to make sound, even though almost every one of them was indignant. Even Wei Yan himself only silently got up and did not say a word. Of course, he had enough reasons to justify and be angry. In front of the fog, he bravely moved forward. In the face of the 9 palaces formation, he broke it first. When he saw the gates of hell, he was willing to take the risk and burn the only red letter on him. It could be said that from any perspective, he had already done the best at this stage and was beyond reproach. But success was success, and failure was failure. The army did not care about such trivial things. Wei Qiuji gave him the authority to go to the Dao Academy to organize people to investigate Xiaolin Town, but he failed to stop the incident from happening. This was a dereliction of duty. Wei Qiuji could even kill him on the spot. But what was the point? Wei Qiuji had come in an aggressive manner, but he had also left in a huff. Some of the young people carried the wounded on their backs, some supported each other, and some carried the corpses. They dispersed just like that. These young disciples of the Tao Academy had just experienced a difficult battle with heavy casualties. A very difficult battle that proved to be useless in the end. From beginning to end, they did not even know who their opponents were, but their opponents had already completed their goal and left. They were called trash. Damn it, I can't accept it. Du Yehu lay sprawled on the dormitory bed like a collapsed iron tower. He did not have any serious injuries on his body, and the damaged foundation had been repaired by the foundation fortifying pill that Zhao Ruqing had sent over. He just needed a period of rest. The foundation fortifying pill was indeed a precious thing, but there was nothing unacceptable about it. It just so happened that Du Yehu needed it and Zhao Ruqing had it. They were existences who could even entrust their lives to each other, let alone other things. However, the Battle of Little Forest Town was, to be honest, a blow to every Tao Academy disciple who participated. To anyone who aspired to be extraordinary and desired to become powerful, being powerless was probably the worst thing that could happen to them. Perhaps Zhao Ruqing was the only exception. He had already gone to the fragrance of 3 fragrances to recuperate. It was said that he wanted to win the heart of the beauty in one fell swoop in the form of a brave warrior who had narrowly escaped death. Du Yehu was not a person who could lie down, but at this moment he could only lie down. Even if he wanted a drink, no one would indulge him. As a result, he was a little depressed, which was rare. Lingyi didn't say anything. He closed his eyes and cultivated. As for Jiang Wang, he was having dinner with Jiang Anan. Saoji Lamb Shop, a century-old shop. There were 2 bowls of fragrant mutton soup and 10 caddies of sliced white mutton. Jiang Anan held a bun in her left hand and a pair of chopsticks in her right hand. The chopsticks were holding mutton. The word grab was used because the way she held the chopsticks was indeed different, probably because no one had corrected her in the past. She wrapped her fingers around the chopsticks and held them tightly. After living with Jiang Wang for a long time, she was no longer as shy and introverted as she was in the beginning. She took a bite from the left and a bite from the right. As she ate, she lowered her head from time to time and took a sip of the broth. 2 faint dimples appeared on her face. She was extremely satisfied. Saoji Mutton Shop was not cheap. If it were Jiang Wang himself, he might not be willing to eat here. During the Little Forest Town mission, although Wei Yin suffered a setback, he still fulfilled his promise and obtained 20 Tao merit points for each of them. Of course, there were also some silver taels as subsidies. For cultivators, this was the least important. However, for Jiang Anan, being able to eat delicious food was very important. Do you like it? Jiang Wang asked with a smile. Oh, yes. Jiang Anan nodded vigorously. In the future, every month, Jiang Wang silently calculated his savings. No, we can eat here once every 10 days, okay? Jiang Anan continued to nod. She chatted with her brother intermittently. Most of the time, she only nodded or shook her head as an answer. Her small hands were not idle. While nodding, she grabbed a piece of mutton and carefully rolled it in the dipping sauce. Then, she stuffed it in her mouth. Anan, how's your homework these days? Probably when chatting with children, all the adults would end up talking about this point. Jiang Wang felt that he was an adult, so he spoke naturally. Although he was only a 17-year-old boy, Jiang Anan's action of eating meat paused for a moment. Her small mouth was full, and it took her a lot of effort to squeeze out a sentence. It's okay. Jiang Wang nodded with satisfaction. He looked at his sister, and there was a kind of slowly flowing, happy peace in his heart. The hardships of the battle, the sadness of seeing his brothers die, the powerlessness of not being able to stop things from happening, all seemed to fade away. Some things were certainly very sad, but the life in front of him was so happy. It made him want to keep it forever. Walking in the Wang clan's land, from time to time, he greeted the clansmen who greeted him. Wang Zhangxiang was calm and peaceful, as usual. Even the most picky clansmen couldn't say anything bad about him. In Maplewood City, the 3 major clans of the Zhang, Fang, and Wang clans were about the same in all aspects. It was hard to tell who was better, but because Zhang Linchuan was now ranked 3rd on the Tao merit list, the Zhang clan faintly surpassed the others. The Wang clan's Wang Zhangxiang was ranked 7th on the Dao merit list, so he wasn't too far behind. The Fang clan was the only one left. The genius of the previous year died in a trial, and the most outstanding Fang Pengju was killed. Now, only Fang Helling was left, and he barely managed to enter the inner sect with the meridian opening pill he obtained at a high price. But in the hearts of discerning people, the Fang clan had been left behind by the other two clans. Not to mention these things, Wang Zhangxiang had always been unwilling to get involved in worldly affairs. Although with his wisdom, he could see through the filthy greed behind the enthusiasm, but he was always calm and collected. The road was getting more and more remote. He finally stopped in front of a semi-old courtyard. This was a remote corner of the Wang clan's land. There were almost no people living nearby, and the owner of the courtyard was like a lone bird living in seclusion. Wang Zhangxiang reached out to push the door. The wooden door made an ear-piercing squeak, disturbing the tranquility of the courtyard. Unlike the mottled and semi-old outer walls, the courtyard was unexpectedly clean and exquisite. On the left was a rack of grapevines, raised high. On the rack was a chair that had been smoothed out. There was no one on the chair, but there was a fat orange cat lying on it. It wasn't surprised when someone came. It only half opened its sleepy eyes and glanced weakly at him. Xiaojiu. Wang Zhangxiang heard it and greeted it. The fat orange cat turned its head and narrowed its eyes again. It was actually disdainful. Wang Zhangxiang wasn't annoyed. He continued to walk forward. There was a large water tank in front of him on the right. Lotus leaves floated in the water tank. Bubbles could be seen from time to time. It should be raising fish. At this moment, he stopped in his tracks because he smelled the aroma of food. Almost at the same time, Xiaojiu, who was on the chair, quickly got up and looked back. Its movements were smooth. In front of the main entrance of the hall, under the eaves, there was a short square table. At this moment, a young man walked out from behind the door. The aroma came from the food plate in his hand. His face couldn't be considered handsome, let alone ugly. It was just that he gave people an inexplicable feeling of being distant. It was probably because of his pair of eyes that were too dull. The young man with the aura of alienation squatted down and placed the food on the short table one by one. There were 2 bowls of white and plump rice, 2 plates of green vegetables, and 2 plates of soft stewed pork trotters. The man sat down on the threshold, took out his chopsticks, and tapped the table with the end of his chopsticks. Eat. Wang Zhangxiang didn't move because he knew that he wasn't being called, even though he really wanted to walk over and eat this meal together. With a whoosh, the orange cat rushed to the short table at a speed that didn't match its size. It lowered its head and sniffed the plate of pork trotters. Then it seemed satisfied. It put its front paws on the short table and began to eat. Wang Zhangxiang opened his mouth. Brother. Probably only a few people remembered. The pride of the Wang family, Wang Zhangxiang, had an older brother. Actually, he was the eldest son of the Wang family's main bloodline. According to the clan's laws, he was the most logical successor to the family head. However, he was also a cripple who wasted a precious meridian unlocking pill for no reason and couldn't manifest his Dao meridians. This caused the Wang family to be ridiculed and lower than the other 2 families. The shame of the Wang family, Wang Zhang. Chapter 31. Of the 2 brothers, one was the pride of the Dao Academy. The other lived in a secluded corner of the family. The difference between heaven and earth was enough to drive people crazy, but there was no trace of anger on Wang Zhangji's face. From beginning to end, he was eating calmly. It was as if eating was the most important thing in the world. His eating speed was very balanced, and his eating was also very meticulous. The pig trotters and vegetables that belonged to him were all finished, and the last mouthful of rice was also swallowed. Only then did he look at his younger brother, his voice gentle. Zhangxiang, what's the matter? Nothing much. I just finished a mission and want to have a chat with you, big brother. Good boy, eat the vegetables, just eating meat won't do. Wang Zhangji stroked the orange cat that was eating the pig trotters, gently persuading it, then turned to Wang Zhangxiang. Tell me, you seem to have a lot on your mind. We went to investigate the disappearance of Xiaolin Town, but when we got there, We found that the place was covered by thick fog, and even a tornado couldn't blow it away. The entire town was filled with wandering souls, and with the 9 palaces as the foundation, they formed the 9 palaces Wandering Souls Formation. Xiaoju. At this point, Wang Zhangxiang suddenly scolded angrily. It turned out that the fat orange cat was impatient with Wang Zhangji teasing it with vegetables, so it clawed at him, leaving 3 bloody scratches on the back of Wang Zhangji's hand. "You're so fierce." Wang Zhangji sighed helplessly, giving up on trying to get Xiaoju to eat some vegetables. He used his left hand to cover the wound on the back of his right hand, then said to Wang Zhangxiang, "Even if you tell me about these Dao techniques and formations, I don't understand." Wang Zhangxiang lowered his head, and his voice also lowered, "But I don't know why, but I just want to tell you." Wang Zhangji rubbed his forehead. Tell me. Did you know, brother? Someone used all the living beings in Xiaolin Town to gather the wandering souls of Maplewood City over the years, and before City Lord Wei arrived, they condensed the illusion of the gates of the abyss and left. At this moment, Wang Zhangxiang was like a child asking for credit. The illusion of the gates of the abyss. Is it very powerful? Paying such a huge price, of course it's extraordinary. With the illusion of the gates of the abyss in hand, you can communicate with the netherworld at any time. The power of the netherworld Dao techniques can be increased by at least 50%. For example, exorcism Daoist techniques can completely surpass grades. Speaking up to this point, Wang Zhangxiang lowered his eyebrows again. I wonder where the demon behind this is going to cause trouble. This matter will be handled by the arrest department. If Wei Qiji fails, there's still the county governor. If the City Dao Academy fails, there's still the County Dao Academy. Behind the County Dao Academy, there's still the National Dao Academy. Don't worry, Wang Zhangji comforted. By this time, Xiaoju had already finished eating the pig trotters. He did not even look at the plate of vegetables. He licked his paws and walked away arrogantly. Wang Zhangji stood up to clear the table. I won't keep you, he said before entering the door. Wang Zhangxiang quietly watched his brother's back as he walked into the room. Then, he turned around and walked out. However, when he passed by Xiaoju's recliner, he suddenly flicked his little finger. An almost undetectable wind blade flashed past. Xiaoju suddenly jumped up and looked around in shock. Half of its long whiskers had been blown away by the wind. If you dare to scratch my brother again. Wang Zhangxiang left with a smile. However, he remembered how much his brother longed for Dao techniques when they were young and how much he loved the supernatural world. But now, no matter what he said in front of him, he could not see that kind of emotion. It was as if he was already willing to live like this. Wang Zhangxiang's steps could not be light. Today, the teacher taught the Flaming Blade, a mid-grade Dao technique of the 4th grade. It was the advanced level of the low-grade Dao technique of the 4th grade, and also one of the foundations of the fire element Dao technique. It was to gather flames into a blade and directly kill the opponent with a hot fire element elemental energy. It was also very effective against ghosts and other filthy things. In fact, at this level, Dao techniques were already stronger than ordinary weapons made of iron. Jiang Wang had already memorized the seals and precautions of this Dao technique. At this time, he suddenly remembered Wei Yan's long blade. That blade was extremely sharp and was definitely not an ordinary weapon. Because with Wei Yan's strength, ordinary iron was only a burden to him. He also thought of Li Jianxiu's sword hanging at his waist all year round, and thought that it must be extraordinary. Thinking of this, he was a bit envious. His sword was half destroyed after killing the resentful ghost last time. When he came back, he took out money to buy a new one. It was still an ordinary iron sword. He could not afford a truly powerful sword and had no way to buy one. He just did not know how powerful the weapons in the hands of those great martial artists who entered the Dao through martial arts were. He was so engrossed in his thoughts that he did not notice the atmosphere in the class. It was not until Ling he quietly nudged him that he realized what was going on. The teacher was an old man who was almost 60 years old. He was very old-fashioned and strict. His surname was Xiao. The students called him Xiao Tianyan in private. At this time, After Xiao Tianyan finished teaching, he randomly picked a few students to practice. When it was Fong Helling's turn, he actually managed to complete the Dao technique. Although the flame of the flaming blade was shaky, it was still completed. Even Xiao Tianyan was somewhat satisfied, but he suddenly said, "Senior apprentice brother Jiang Wang opened his meridians before me. Why don't you also try this Dao technique? If there's anything that doesn't go well, you can ask our master for advice." So Xiao Tianyan's eyes fell on Jiang Wang, who was distracted. "Oh no," Jiang Wang thought. He got up from the futon and said, "Honestly, I haven't laid the foundation yet." Fong Helling, who entered the inner sect at the same time as him, could already perform Dao techniques. But he had not finished laying the foundation yet. The other students looked at him strangely. "You don't need to listen to the lecture if you haven't laid the foundation?" Xiao Tianyan stared at him. What he hated the most were the students who slacked off. Obviously, they had embarked on the path of transcendence, but they did not know how to cherish it. They only used it as a capital to show off in front of ordinary people. "I know I was wrong." Jiang Wang lowered his head and admitted his mistake like a hoodlum. Xiao Tianyan said coldly, "Go back and copy the purple virtual scripture 100 times. You don't need to come to my class until you finish." "Yes." Jiang Wang lowered his head and responded. In his heart, he complained bitterly. The full name of the purple virtual scripture was the purple virtual scripture of the highest heavens. It was the fundamental scripture of Mount Yujing. Every Taoist of Mount Yujing could be said to be familiar with it. There was really no need to copy it. Xiao Tianyan was purely punishing him. Most importantly, the entire scripture was close to 30,000 words. How long would it take to copy it? But he knew that he could not refuse. Otherwise, with Xiao Tianyan's temper, he might just roll up his sleeves and beat him up. In the following class, Jiang Wang tried his best to be alert. He did not dare to slack off at all. With great difficulty, he waited until Xiao Tianyan left with his hands behind his back. Fong Helling once again came over and stammered, "Oh, Junior Jiang, I'm so sorry. I didn't know you hadn't laid the foundation yet." Cultivation was not based on time. Fong Helling also very naturally changed the term senior to junior. His tone was very regretful. "After opening my meridians, I took 53 days to successfully lay the foundation. I feel that it was too slow, and I feel ashamed. I thought that with Junior Jiang's prestige in the past, you should have laid the foundation long ago. Sigh, this matter is too troublesome." The foundation-laying formation used by Zhuangdao academies had a total of 81 formation points. Based on the harvest of 2 pieces of Dao energy from 2 meridians per day, laying the foundation in 53 days could not be said to be slow. This was because there were many errors in the formation points, causing the progress to stagnate. Currently, the record for laying the foundation in the entire Zhuangdao Academy was Zhu Weiwa. He had successfully laid the foundation in 9 days, surpassing all previous records. From this inconceivable speed, his Dao Meridian True Spirit was definitely not at the level of a bumpkin True Spirit like Jiang Wang. But as for what level of True Spirit it was, it involved personal privacy, and there was no way to find out. Speaking of which, for the disciples of Maplewood City's Dao Academy, it was normal for them to take 60 to 90 days. It was no wonder that Fong Helling was so self-satisfied. He did not hide the provocation in his eyes. He also wanted to see this arrogant fellow in front of him fly into a rage out of humiliation. He had even simulated the following battle in his mind. He wanted to use his Dao techniques to brilliantly deal with this bumpkin who could only rely on his sword techniques. But Jiang Wang only smiled and turned to leave. He was not angry and did not care. Chapter 32. Just like every other day, he successfully completed the unblocking meridians cultivation. Then, he activated his new Dao energy and arranged it in the right position in the Tongtian Palace, bringing himself one step closer to laying his foundation. After finishing the unblocking meridians cultivation, Jiang Wang did not rest. Instead, he lit an oil lamp in front of his desk and began to copy the purple virtual Taishang Sutra. Because only the two of them lived in the main room, they directly used the south room as a study. His senior brothers had long warned Xiao Tianyan about being unreasonable, so Jiang Wang's attitude when copying was very proper and meticulous. The importance of teaching Dao techniques and skills did not need to be mentioned. Every missed class was a huge loss. Therefore, Jiang Wang tried his best to copy as fast and well as possible. Until, "Brother, what are you doing?" Jiang Anan had unknowingly snuck into the study. She was staring at him with her big black eyes full of curiosity. Jiang Wang said, "Practicing calligraphy." "Why do you suddenly want to practice calligraphy?" Jiang Wang said seriously. As the saying goes, one's words reflect one's person. Judging a person by their words, you can tell whether they are sincere or not. Teacher has taught you this, right? Practicing calligraphy is very important. Anan, remember to practice more too. Then how much longer do you need to practice? Quite long. Jiang Wang said, "You can sleep first today." "Oh, what's wrong? Is something the matter?" No. Jiang Anan turned and left the study. She sighed like a little adult. "Stupid old man. He punished me to copy so many words. Now that the study is also occupied, what can I copy?" It was not that the study could not accommodate her and Jiang Wang, but she did not want her brother to know that she was punished to copy. Jiang Anan thought for a moment and moved a small stool into the bedroom. She took out a pen and paper and squatted in front of the stool to copy. Heaven and earth are black and yellow. The universe is primitive and desolate. The sun and moon rise and fall. The stars and constellations are arranged. She turned to look at the study. The light was still on. Yes, continue copying. The moon was in the middle of the sky. Jiang Wang rubbed his wrists and blew the ink dry. He extinguished the oil lamp and got up to return to the bedroom. Even with his stamina and speed, he was still far from being able to copy 100 times. However, he had more important things to do at this moment. Because tonight was the 15th of September, the day of the Blessed Lands Challenge in the Great Illusionary Realm. When he returned to the bedroom and was already asleep, Jiang Wang tucked her in and then lay down on his bed. The silver moon mark appeared on his palm and began to heat up. Jiang Wang closed his eyes, and his divine sense entered the Great Illusionary Realm. The words on the sundial changed. The challenge of the Green Jade Altar's Master has been confirmed. The challenge will begin in 15 minutes. The owner of the Green Jade Altar had finally decided to challenge Duan Ling Tian. Seeing this line of words, Jiang Wang felt a sense of urgency in his heart, but he also felt a sense of relief, as if his boots had finally landed on the ground. On the 15th of August, the owner of the Green Jade Altar also chose to forfeit. It seemed like Zhuo Guanglia had left a heavy shadow in his heart. However, this also meant that the opponent was determined to win this round after giving up so many times. Jiang Wang didn't do anything else. He cleared his mind and silently waited for the time to come. When the sundial finally changed, a circular jade-colored stone platform protruded from under Jiang Wang's body. Then, it lifted Jiang Wang out of the blessed land of the true cave ruins and into the brilliant Milky Way. The stone platform had a simple shape and didn't have any decorations. However, there was an ancient aura circulating around it. The surface of the platform was mottled with knife marks, sword marks, burn marks, scorch marks. It was hard to count, but it also had a strong aura of killing. Jiang Wang understood that this was his sword discourse arena. Ever since he obtained the virtual key and entered the great illusionary realm, he had never used the sword discourse arena. Firstly, it was because he knew that with his strength, he would only be tortured and killed in the great illusionary realm. Secondly, it was because every time he used the sword discourse arena, it would consume 10 points of energy. Other than the natural production of the blessed land, Jiang Wang couldn't gain anything from the sword discourse arena. Therefore, he was even more reluctant to consume energy, especially after he experienced the power of the East Rising purple chi sword technique. He knew how precious energy was. Not long after, Jiang Wang could already see a similarly shaped sword discourse arena flying towards him from the depths of the Milky Way. On the sword discourse arena stood a figure in black robes. The two sword discourse arenas instantly accelerated in the Milky Way and collided with each other. The two small arenas combined into one big arena. Jiang Wang and his opponent stood on opposite sides of the sword discourse arena. The sword discourse arena, after the merger, was no different from before. The only difference was its size. Jiang Wang guessed that this was the real battlefield, and he knew in his heart that this was the real battlefield. Because of the special rules of the great illusionary realm, Jiang Wang couldn't see his opponent's appearance clearly. However, he could hear his opponent's voice. Ever since I suffered a crushing defeat at your hands, I have been preparing for this battle for half a year. The owner of the green jade altar said, I have finally mastered the incomplete technique of the 9 swords of the gentleman from ancient times. Please give a try. The 9 swords of the gentleman from ancient times? It sounds very powerful. A Confucian sect disciple? As Jiang Wang thought of this, he secretly circulated his quintessential core and prepared to fight. The quintessential core that was consumed in the great illusionary realm was not real. Hence, he dared to fight with all his might. The East-Rising Purple Chi sword technique was an extraordinary sword technique. It could only unleash its true power when it was infused with abundant quintessential core. Hence, he was about to display his most powerful state, which he had never shown to anyone before. Heaven is vigorous, and a gentleman must strive ceaselessly. Then, Jiang Wang heard the owner of the green jade altar recite this sentence softly. Then he saw a sword. It looked very ordinary and nothing special. It just kept moving forward. There was a mountain in front of it, and it pierced through it. There was a river in front of it, and it cut through it. There was a vast sky in front of it, and it pierced through it. It was indomitable, and it kept moving forward, breaking rocks, cutting forests, slaying demons, slaying evil. This sword pierced through everything that stood in its way, no matter what it was. Jiang Wang was still holding his sword. The Tao energy that he had accumulated in the heavenly palace was boiling. The killing technique of the East-Rising Purple Chi sword technique had almost become part of his instinct. However, the sword had already pierced through his heart. He had died in battle. The owner of the green jade altar looked at the empty sword discourse arena and was stunned. He was quite confident in the 9 virtuous swords that had been lost in the long river of history. However, he also remembered how powerful his opponent was. However, in this battle, he had completely suppressed and defeated his opponent. He had won. The owner of the green jade altar. No, he was now the owner of the true cave ruins. The new owner of the Blessed Land 23 was stunned on the sword discourse arena. He was overwhelmed with emotions. As for Jiang Wang, who had descended to the green jade altar, he had already accepted the fact that he had lost the battle. According to the rules of the upper 36 Blessed Lands, every level would increase by 100 merit points. This month, he could only obtain 1750 merit points. He had lost 100 merit points. The Blessed Lands in the great illusionary realm were just a name. They had nothing to do with the real Blessed Lands in the real world. Hence, the environment from the true cave ruins to the green jade altar did not change. It was still a dreamy space filled with immortal chi. Even the sundial was the same. The only thing that had changed was the merit points. Jiang Wang thought for a while and silently summoned the Tao development stage. The 1850 merit points he obtained in the 8th month did not change. In addition to the 1750 merit points he obtained in the 9th month, he had accumulated a total of 3,600 merit points. Jiang Wang channeled all these merit points into the East-Rising Purple Chi sword technique and started to deduce it. The ancient 9 virtuous swords had shocked him too much. It was a sword technique that he could not resist at all. He did not even have the slightest chance. Hence, he needed a stronger sword manual, even if he had to use everything he had now. The jade book on the green bamboo table changed slightly and then suddenly stopped. Then, a line of ink words appeared on the jade book. The current sword technique has reached the limit of the first layer of the Tao development stage. It is unable to be deduced. Remaining merit points, 3590. Jiang Wang's eyelids twitched. This lousy Dao development stage did not deduce anything, but it still deducted 10 merit points. It turned out that the Dao development stage could not deduce cultivation techniques and Dao techniques without limit. It had its own foundation and limits. Moreover, different levels of the Dao development stage could deduce different limits. The East Rising Purple Chi Sword technique was originally a deduction based on the foundation of secular martial arts. It had already reached its limit. Unless the Dao development stage was upgraded, it would not be able to progress any further. Jiang Wang did not have any more powerful moves. He also did not have any thoughts of going to the sword discourse arena to be abused. Hence, he slightly sorted out his emotions and left the great illusionary realm. However, no matter what, he had lost 110 merit points for this month for no reason. Thinking of this, Jiang Wang deeply sighed. "Brother, what are you doing?" Jiang Ainan's voice sounded in the room. She seemed to be very concerned. It was unknown if she had woken up in the middle of the night or if she had not slept at all. Jiang Wang unhappily said, "I'm staying up late. I'll call you when it's done." In the darkness, Jiang Ainan's eyes lit up. "Is it delicious?" Chapter 33. Cultivation was not something that could be achieved by cultivating day and night in seclusion. In fact, the experience of entering the world and various battles were equally important. This was also one of the reasons why Emperor Zhuang set up the Dao merit list to encourage cultivators to complete various tasks. It was not that the imperial court could not deal with those tasks, but that this kind of experience could improve the efficiency of cultivation. Zhuang country was not the only country like this. All the countries and sects in the world had similar systems. Using the Battle of Little Forest Town as an example, after killing the vengeful ghosts, Jiang Wang's Tong Tian Palace produced more than 10 new Dao essences. They were not formed through cultivation, but were naturally formed in the aftershocks of the fierce battle. Daoyuan was the perfect fusion of will and power. It was the true feedback of the spirits of all things to the origin of heaven and earth. It was also the foundation of all powerful and extraordinary beings. This was the reason why Zhao Ruqing invited everyone to drink wine. As cultivators, they needed to complete their own life experiences. Ling He, with his upright character, was unwilling to wallow in the mire. Therefore, he was in charge of picking up Jiang Ainun from school and taking her out to play. Duyahu could not have asked for anything more. Jiang Wang was reluctant. He originally refused with the excuse that he had to take care of Jiang Ainun. However, after Zhao Ruqing quickly arranged for Ling He, everyone was happy. There was also Huang Azan. He was drinking with Du Yehu at the time. When he heard this good news, he practically hugged Du Yehu's leg and was dragged all the way here. Fortunately, young Master Zhao was rich and did not care about a few more miscellaneous people. The best brothel in Maplewood City, 3 fragrant brothel, the most luxurious private room, and the most expensive girls. Ever since they moved out to live with Jiang, and they rarely got together in private except for classes in the Taoist Academy. After 3 rounds of drinking, Jiang Wang asked the girls to leave first. Hey, don't go. Sister, good sister, I'll go home with you." The one who was red in the face and crying was naturally Huang Azan. He had just asked the girls to drink more than 7 or 8 rounds, so he was a bit drunk. He was so emotional that he wanted to send them off 10 miles away. He really wanted to give up his virginity here. However, the girls all smiled and refused, leaving one after another. They were all cultivators. Of course, it was not possible for them to fool around. For cultivators, before opening the gate of heaven and earth, it was necessary to maintain a yuan-yang body. Therefore, Jiang Wang remained sober. Du Yehu, on the other hand, only wanted to drink. Where to drink and who to drink with were secondary. Only Huang Azan was reluctant to part with Zhao Ruqing. He looked at Zhao Ruqing for help. In his opinion, the two of them were kindred spirits. But Zhao Ruqing only shook his head. He couldn't hide his disappointment that the girl he had specially invited didn't come. Mediocre women. How boring. This is vulgar. Huang Azin almost jumped up. Look at how big that cup is. No, that dress is so round. No, that hairpin is so white. In the end, he gave up and cried bitterly. Sob, sob, sob. How is this vulgar? Jiang Wang, Zhao Ruqing. Du Yehu slapped him on the head. Go to sleep if you're drunk. You can have everything in your dreams. Ignoring Huang Azin, who was snoring thunderously on the table, Jiang Wang calculated for a moment and said, I've been doing some random quests recently and got 15 Dao points. Together with the 25 points I saved before, I have 40 now. I don't need the Dao point for now, so I'll transfer them to you. Whoever has enough Dao points can exchange them for a meridian unlocking pill. He was referring to Zhao Ruqing, Du Yehu, and, of course, Ling He, who wasn't present. They were all brothers. If they had to talk about the order, they would be unfamiliar with each other. Therefore, it was best to give them to whoever had the most Dao points first. The manifestation of Dao meridians was a big deal. It was the first step to becoming a transcendent. Of course, the sooner, the better. I don't want it, Zhao Ruqing said lazily, half leaning on the chair. He didn't seem to care about cultivation. He relied on his talent to get by. I don't need it either. Du Yehu drank a cup of wine and suddenly said, I'm leaving. Leaving? Where are you going? Jiang Wang asked. Wei Yin asked me if I wanted to go to the army. I've thought about it for a few days. I've decided. I'll leave tomorrow. This was so sudden that Zhao Ruqing sat up straight. Brother Hu, you have to think it over. I've thought it over. Du Yehu grinned. Wei Yin said, I'm more suited to the military path. I think so too. What he said wasn't wrong. Jiang Wang and Zhao Ruqing both knew that Du Yehu's physique was different from ordinary people's. His qi and blood were vigorous. He was indeed a candidate for the military path. However, the entire Zhuang kingdom was dominated by Dao cultivators. There weren't many military experts in the Zhuang kingdom. Even the Zhuang kingdom's military commander in name, Great General Huang Fu Duanming, was a Dao cultivator. The entire Zhuang kingdom lacked cultivators from other schools. Of course, this included the military path. Even Wei Yin himself cultivated Daoist techniques. If Du Yehu chose this path, it meant that he wouldn't have a systematic cultivation space for a long time. He would only have a few scattered military cultivation techniques. It wasn't that the military path wasn't strong enough. The reason why the Zhuang kingdom could live peacefully for so long under the covetous eyes of the Yong kingdom was because of the support of Dao sections. The Zhuang kingdom wasn't strong enough. It couldn't be as inclusive as the Qin and Chu kingdoms. The Zhuang kingdom was dominated by Dao cultivators. It could only be dominated by Dao cultivators. However, Jiang Wang couldn't say anything to stop him. This was because he knew Du Yehu's character too well. This man had a burning and wild fire in his heart. He didn't want to admit defeat. Of course, he also didn't want to be left behind by Jiang Wang. However, those Dao scriptures gave him a headache. They didn't match. Moreover, his physique and blood energy were indeed outstanding. If he were in the Mo kingdom or other places where military cultivators were prevalent, he would certainly be a genius that attracted a lot of attention. Who did Wei Yin recruit you for? Jiang Wang asked. There were many vacancies at the Zhejiang Xian Armor. There were also a few vacancies at Maplewood City. Wei Yin felt that I was suitable, so he recommended me. It was probably because Du Yehu's bravery and straightforwardness was to the liking of soldiers. After the Xiaolantown mission, Wei Yin had established a friendship with him. As for the Zhejiang Xian Armor, it was practically a merit of the Zhuang kingdom. It was the most powerful army in the entire Zhuang kingdom. Its reputation was even greater than the White Feather Army that guarded Exa. In fact, because of the existence of the Zhejiang Xian Armor, Zhejiang City was often called the fourth county of the Zhuang kingdom. It was nominally under the rule of Daishan County, but it was actually highly autonomous. The mayor of Zhejiang City was also the leader of the Zhejiang Xian Armor. This tradition had been passed down since the founding of the country. Even if you go to the Zhejiang Xian Armor, you still need Dao points. Because Du Yehu was about to join the army, Jiang Wang had decided to transfer his Dao points to him first. No need. Du Yehu still shook his head. He wasn't pretentious. He wasn't a pretentious person. He said casually, since I'm going to walk the path of the military, I don't plan to take the meridian opening pill. Of course, I'm going to walk the most traditional and ancient path of the military. The so-called tradition of the military referred to cultivators who didn't rely on pills. Instead, they chose to use vitality to open their meridians. It could be called ancient because only 1 in 1,000 people could succeed on this path. The best outcome for those who failed was to become a cripple. Most of them died on the spot. It should be known that cultivating meridian opening twice a day to supplement vitality and condensed out essence was the limit of an ordinary person's cultivation. How dangerous was it to gather vitality and directly open one's celestial palace and externalize one's meridians? However, it was also because of this danger that the group of madmen from the military regarded it as orthodox and revered it. Once one succeeded, the benefits were great. Military cultivators who succeeded in opening their meridians through this method often had extraordinary achievements. Jiang Wang and Zhao Ruqing were silent. They could feel this tiger's determination. So, I'll transfer my Dao points to boss first. I'll give mine to him as well. Du Yahu casually cut off his own path of retreat. He picked up the wine jug and drank half of it. Chapter 34. Du Yahu was the son of a butcher. Because he was rich, he was fat and strong since he was young. He often chased after 7 or 8 children of his age and was known as the little tyrant of Du Town. Because of this, he was beaten up by old Du every 2 to 3 days. The more he was beaten, the stronger he became. His name was given to him by old Du in exchange for 2 caddies of offal from an old monk. The country of Zhuang regarded Taoism as the national religion, so the situation of Buddhism was naturally not very good. The old monk guarded the only rundown temple in a radius of 100 miles and ate his meals one after another. When he saw the pig offal, he was like a cat seeing a fish. His eyes shone with golden light, as if Buddha had appeared. At that time, Du Yahu hugged the 2 caddies of offal and did not let go. Although he was the son of a butcher and had eaten a lot of meat, the leftovers were not enough for him. He cried and shouted that he did not want a name and only wanted to eat pig offal. He could be called Zhu Zi or pig offal. Old Du was embarrassed and beat him up. In the end, old Du was tired, but little Du still carried the 2 caddies of offal into the water. The old monk said on the spot that he could share the offal with little Du and eat half each. He also said that this kid had a strong character and was difficult to tame. Wild Tiger was just right. Du Yahu had an official name, but he still did not do anything serious. Ever since he met the old monk, he followed behind him every day. The old monk had all kinds of businesses, including fortune-telling, praying for rain, exorcism, and all kinds of swindling. However, Du Yahu only learned how to drink from him. Old Du was worried that his son would accidentally become a monk, so he would take a look at the run-down temple from time to time with a butcher knife. Fortunately, the old monk left not long after. He left quietly, without even a word of farewell. Later, the rundown temple was torn down and changed into a local temple. Not long after, something happened to old Du. The cause was a very small matter. A constable in town felt that the amount of meat he bought was not enough and scolded old Du for being underweight. Normally, the matter would be settled after compensating with 2 caddies of meat. However, old Du was also stubborn. He picked up the butcher knife and nailed it to the chopping board, saying that he could go anywhere and take advantage of others. The constable did not want to lose face, so he impulsively stabbed him and died on the spot. Mrs. Du went to the government office to complain. The case was simple, and there were witnesses and material evidence. However, the brother-in-law of the constable happened to be the master of the small government office in Du Town. After some slight changes in the case, old Du the butcher knife. The constable had no choice but to retaliate and accidentally killed him. In the end, he was fined half a year's salary. Poor old Du. He did not have the guts to kill people. Madame Du's Du was killed, Du was Du. That day, Du Yahu led a group of children to the river in the neighboring town to catch fish. When he returned home, his house was gone. Thus, he He picked up the knife that old Du used to butcher pigs and rushed into the yamen in broad daylight. In front of everyone, he hacked the bailiff and his brother-in-law to death in the hall. At that time, he was only 13 years old. And, as do's was do, and do this was do Yehu's story. He was stubborn since he was young. Once he decided on something, no one could change it. There was nothing he could do about it. His parents were both so stubborn. The cultivation method should have been given to you? Jiang Wang asked after some thought. Du Yu took out a small booklet and casually threw it on the table in front of Jiang Wang. Here, the white tiger body tempering art. It's incomplete. It's said to be the military's version. Of course, this cultivation method could not be taught to outsiders, but Du Yu did not believe that Jiang Wang would harm him. Jiang Wang picked up the military cultivation method and casually flipped through it. He stood up and said, "I have something to do. Wait for me." Leaving Zhao Ruqing and Du Yu to talk, Jiang Wang stood up and went out. He found an empty room and locked it. Then, he activated the virtual key and entered the great illusionary land. He summoned the Dao development platform and placed the incomplete manual on it. He began to deduce it. The points on the sundial continuously decreased until it reached 190 points. The deduction of this cultivation method consumed a total of 3,400 points. It was almost twice as much as the East Rising purple chi sword art. It was also the limit of the Dao development platform. Of course, this was also because although this cultivation method was incomplete, it was still a military cultivation method. It was a true, transcendent cultivation method. Its foundation was much better than the East Rising purple chi sword art, so its upper limit was naturally much higher. After the deduction was completed, Jiang Wang took the brand new cultivation method and looked at it. He found that it not only completed the incomplete white tiger body tempering art, but also expanded and evolved. It was now divided into azure dragon, white tiger, vermilion bird, and black tortoise. Finally, the four spirits combined into one. Its power was incomparable to before. Jiang Wang exited the great illusionary land and left with the cultivation method. As soon as he opened the door, he saw a beautiful woman in a red dress standing at the door. Her eyebrows were black and her eyes rippled like autumn waves. Just a quick glance was enough to faintly reveal endless flirtatious feelings. Her eyes were filled with emotion. Her red lips moved slightly, as if she wanted to say something. "Excuse me." Jiang Wang walked past her. It wasn't that Jiang Wang was so insensitive, but that he had just come out of the great illusionary land. He had a panicked feeling that his secret had almost been discovered. No matter how beautiful the woman was, he couldn't appreciate it. Drinking alcohol really made things worse. Jiang Wang was secretly on guard. He had actually directly entered the great illusionary land in a place like Three Fragrant Restaurant, where fishes and dragons mixed in. He had completely forgotten where he was. Jiang Wang hurried back to Zhao Ruqing's private room. He quietly waited for a while. After confirming that no one had followed him, he let out a sigh of relief and sat back down. He returned the white tiger body tempering art to Du Yu. The newly deduced four spirits body tempering art only existed in the great illusionary land. It still needed to be copied. "When are you leaving?" Jiang Wang asked. "Tomorrow morning." Du Yu said. "Tomorrow we'll send you off." Knock, knock, knock. Untimely knock sounded on the door. "Come in," Zhao Ruqing said casually. The person who came in was the procuress of Three Fragrant Restaurant. She was a woman in a gorgeous dress with thick makeup. "Oh my, our young master Zhao is becoming more and more handsome," the woman teased. She even reached out a hand to touch Zhao Ruqing's face, appearing very familiar. Zhao Ruqing stepped back and deliberately glanced at her half-exposed chest. "Don't get too close. I'll feel dizzy." The procuress pretentiously laughed. "You're so annoying. You didn't have this problem before. Your Three Fragrant Restaurant wasn't like this before either." The procuress frowned. "But is there something about this restaurant that isn't attentive enough? Was it those lowly servants who neglected our esteemed guest?" Zhao Ruqing looked at her with interest. "What do you think? I spent so much money today, and you still won't let Miaoyu come out to see me? Three Fragrant Restaurant is famous all over the world. Do you only have this kind of trick to keep your customers in suspense? Three Fragrant Restaurant was a truly world-famous brothel. It had branches all over the world. The owner of the restaurant was elusive, but her beauty had spread far and wide. She was known as the most beautiful woman in the world. Any man who had seen her was willing to be a subject under her skirt. Among them, there was no lack of generals with real power and nobles. There were even legends that said that there was a ruler of a country or a leader of a sect. All of them were infatuated with her. Three Fragrant Restaurant's background was undoubtedly terrifying. Although this small branch in Maplewood City didn't have any expert overseeing it, just the name of Three Fragrant Restaurant was enough to make it the most stylish brothel in the city. It was because of Three Fragrant Restaurant's background that the procuress was so confident. But it was also because of this background that she didn't dare to let Three Fragrant Restaurant's reputation be damaged. Thus, her face instantly turned ugly. Is it possible? At this time, a soft voice continued the topic. A woman in a bright red dress gracefully walked in. Red was a color that was difficult to wear. It was easy to fall into gaudy, but she just happened to be suitable. Or it could be said that she was the best interpretation of the word gaudy. She wouldn't be covered up. She walked into the room and looked at everyone in the room with her clear eyes. Finally, she shyly smiled and fell on Zhao Ruqing. Could it be that it wasn't Mother who stopped me from seeing you, but that I didn't want to see you? She was naturally Miao Yu. Chapter 35. Compared to those famous Three Fragrant brothels in big countries and famous cities, this branch in Maplewood City was probably not worth mentioning. But as long as one has seen Miao Yu, they would not say so. One of the current heads of the Fong family, Fong Zhu, is Fong Helling's father and Fong Pengju's uncle. He has traveled extensively, experienced and knowledgeable, and independently opened up the Yun country's trade route. He has both ability and reputation, and is the next head of the Fong family. Such a person is obsessed with Miss Miao Yu. Every time he returns from a business trip, the first thing he does is to visit Three Fragrant brothels. Such things are too numerous to mention. Fong Zihu is not the first big shot to fall under Miao Yu's skirt, nor will he be the last. And Zhao Ruqing, who is greedy for flowers and grass, is also among them. Since he heard of Miao Yu's reputation, he spent a lot of money, almost treating Three Fragrant brothels as his home, and has the momentum of not giving up until he gets his hands on her. There is no such possibility. Zhao Ruqing said very calmly, "A woman who refuses to see me has not been born yet." At the same time, he added in his heart, "Jiang Anan is of course not a woman. She is just a little brat." Miao Yu slightly nodded, as if to express agreement. Indeed, Zhao Gongzi's appearance is first-class handsome, and his spending is first-class extravagant. Your strength is not bad, your family background is good, your future is bright, your heart is exquisite, and your mouth is sweet. Which woman can resist you? But, she said, but her eyebrows suddenly showed a trace of sadness, making people want to help her wipe it away. But you don't like me enough. It seems that Zhao Ruqing does not like her enough, making her sad. A burst of very wretched and abrupt laughter broke the atmosphere. It is Huang Azin who has woken up, but his drunkenness has not completely dissipated. At this moment, he is holding his chin, looking at Miss Miao Yu with a silly smile. Needless to say, it is clear what he is thinking. Jiang Wang covered his face and did not speak. He recognized Miao Yu as the red-dressed woman he bumped into before, but in this kind of environment, he has no right to speak. Du Yehu wants to drag Huang Azin out and kill him, so as to not embarrass himself like this. He was considering whether it was worth it to commit a murder before joining the army. What do you mean you don't like it enough? Zhao Ruqing was the only one who didn't lose face. His face was calm, as if he didn't know Huang Azin at all. I've never chased after a woman for so long. Ever since I met Miss Miao Yu, I've spent more time in fragrance of Three Fragrances than in Chengdao Academy. My love is overflowing. It's about to drown this place. He got up and left his seat, elegantly approaching Miao Yu. Here, he pressed against his heart. It had to be said that in such a situation, such a handsome person, even though the brothel keeper had weathered countless storms in her life, at this moment, her eyes were dazzled, and she was somewhat unable to suppress her emotions. However, Miayu stopped him with just one sentence. "You don't really like me. You're just too bored." The charming smile on Zhao Ruqing's face disappeared. He stopped in his tracks and no longer moved forward. "I really don't like you now," he said. "I hate women who are too clever." Jiang Wang had always known that Zhao Ruqing was a person who was very afraid of trouble and very indifferent. He didn't seem to care about anything. Muddling through was his life motto. He squandered money like it was water and wasted time. Just like wasting money, he also wasted talent. But this was his own business. No one had the right to interfere with him. So he could understand Zhao Ruqing's overly frivolous love and dislike. But then again, talking about likes and dislikes in a brothel was a humorous thing in itself. Let's go home. I still have to cook for an inn." Jiang Wang got up and said, "Third brother." Zhao Ruqing looked at him with a sincere face. "Can we take some food home? Don't cook by yourself." Du Yehu also nodded solemnly. His face was full of lingering fear. "And is still a child." Jiang Wang's face was ugly. "Are we still going or not?" Let's go. Du Yehu picked up Huang Azan, ignoring his struggle and laughter. The group of people dispersed in a hubbub. Miayu just watched them leave with a smile, not saying anything. But with a light twist of her finger, a white granular object that had been prepared for a long time quietly fell on Jiang Wang's back without anyone's knowledge. And it seeped into his body. Du Yehu sent his drunken drinking buddies away. So young master Zhao naturally returned home to rest. Jiang Wang went to the Dao Academy's dormitory alone to pick up. When he picked up Jiang Anin, she was clearly not in a very good mood. Her little mouth was pouted, and no one knew what she was sulking about. "What's wrong, my little Anin?" Jiang Wang smiled very amiably. "Nothing." Jiang Anin pouted. "That's good." Jiang Wang waved his hand. "Let's go home." Jiang Anin was stunned. Was he really not going to ask a few more questions and show some concern? On the other side, Ling He didn't try to persuade her to stay. He just waved his hand. "Goodbye, Anin." Jiang Wang understood that this big brother of his had wanted to cultivate for a long time, but couldn't because he had to take care of Jiang Anin. His talent wasn't the best, but his diligence was top-notch. "Goodbye, big brother Ling He." Although Jiang Anin wasn't too happy, she still had basic manners. "All right." Before leaving, Jiang Wang said casually, "We've already transferred our Dao points to you. Pooling them together, you should be close to getting the Meridian unlocking pill. Put in more effort and go get it as soon as possible." Ling He was silent for a while, then said, "You should give it to Ruqing first. He's the youngest and the most talented. We shouldn't waste it." "He's not interested." Jiang Wang simply explained everything. Then Big Brother, who plans to go to the Jiujiang Profound Armor and walk the path of the ancient military school of Qi and Blood. Ling, he didn't push it any further. He just said, "Okay." He knew that Zhao Ruqing's lack of interest was genuine. No one could change Du Yehu's decision. There wasn't much he could do. What he wanted to do now was to not waste these Dao points in friendship. "Let's go home." Jiang Wang lifted Jiang Anin up and let her sit on his right shoulder. He walked home with steady steps. Jiang Anin suddenly became happy. "Go." Her legs swayed in front of Jiang Wang. On the way out of the Dao Academy, she even excitedly spoke on behalf of Jiang Wang. Every time someone greeted, "Hello, Senior Marshal Brother Jiang," she would crisply reply, "Hello to you too." Jiang Wang followed her and only nodded in response. "Is Big Brother Ling He very bored?" Jiang Wang asked casually on the way home. "School hasn't ended yet. He's already waiting at the door. I have things to do after school, but he won't let me. He's been following me around," Jiang Anin said while biting her finger. Ling He had a generous and reliable personality. Asking him to look after Jiang Anin was the safest choice. Being inseparable was just a basic operation. "What can you be busy with?" Jiang Wang said as he pulled her finger off. "Don't bite your nails." "Whoa." Jiang Anin was so angry that she wanted to jump down on the spot. Thinking that there was still some distance to go from home, she let it go. "I'm very busy." I can't be bothered to talk to you. Jiang Wang didn't really care. He said casually, Big brother Ling, he is a very nice person, and it has to be polite to him. You can't throw a tantrum. Don't bite your nails. Just like that, the voice gradually faded away. Ji, Dao, La. Chapter 36. As usual, Jiang Wang sent Jiang Anan to school after doing morning exercises and breathing Tao essence. Then he went out of the city to see Du Yehu off. Traveling was not an easy thing these days. It was filled with the bitterness of life and death. The reason why humans lived in villages, towns, and cities was largely because of the endless wild beasts, as well as the ferocious beasts and demonic beasts hidden in the mountains. Towns were safe. Other than that, there were only the official roads. It wasn't that the formation patterns carved on the official roads were foolproof. The manor couldn't afford to pay such a huge price. In fact, the formation pattern's effect was mostly to intimidate. More importantly, the manor would mobilize powerful cultivators to regularly sweep the roads, officially called plowing, to ensure that the ferocious beasts without intelligence but with keen intuition would remember the danger and not dare to approach. With Du Yehu's strength, as long as he walked on the official roads, there wouldn't be too much danger. When Jiang Wang arrived at the outskirts of the city, Zhao Ruqing and Ling He were there. There was no one else. Among the brothers, Du Yehu had a bold temperament and had the most friends. However, he didn't like bashful relationships, so he didn't tell the others about his enlistment. Instead, he asked Ling He to pass the message. A banquet was set up in the wilderness. It was undoubtedly Zhao Ruqing's handiwork. Jiang Wang took out the Four Spirits body tempering technique that he had copied overnight and handed it to Du Yehu. Du Yehu's eyes lit up after flipping through 2 pages. Third brother, this is good stuff. Let me see. Zhao Ruqing came over curiously. However, he turned his head after reading a few lines. Body tempering? How tiring is that? Such a good cultivation technique. Du Yehu was exasperated. You won't be willing to let it go after a few more glances. Although he could tell at a glance that this cultivation technique was the complete sublimation of the white tiger body tempering technique, he didn't ask Jiang Wang where it came from. When Jiang Wang wanted to tell him, he would naturally tell him. Everyone had their own secrets. Even Jiang Anan had her own secrets that she didn't want to tell others. There was no need to get to the bottom of it. He also didn't have any thoughts of monopolizing it. He fell in love with this cultivation technique at first sight. He hoped that the other brothers wouldn't miss it. Zhao Ruqing waved his hand. It's too long. I won't look. Du Yehu turned to Ling He, who shook his head. I'm currently focusing on opening my meridians and stabilizing my heavenly palace. I can't be distracted by other cultivation techniques. He was a steady person who would take things one step at a time. After pooling all their Dao merit points, they were only a little more than 20 Dao merit points away. These days, he had been doing missions, but it was difficult for him to handle the graded missions. Most of the time, he followed behind his senior brothers and did some side work. Therefore, the number of Taoist points he gained was very little. Usually, he gained 1 or 2 points. Sometimes he even gained nothing. But no matter what, he was getting closer and closer to becoming a transcendent. Jiang Wang smiled and said, I will also use this method to refine my body. When we meet again, let's see who has cultivated more deeply. My talent in swordsmanship is not as good as yours. As for the military cultivation method, just wait and see. Du Yehu was very confident. Then, see you in Exine. When Jiang Wang and the others went to Exine City, it was naturally the day they would be admitted to the National Academy. When Du Yehu went to Exine City, he had to at least become a general with real power in the Zhejiang Xian armor before he could go to the Zhuang capital to practice martial arts. Their grand imaginations of the future were all in the young people's idle chatter. The brothers casually ate a few mouthfuls and chatted for a while. Other than Ling He, who never drank, the other 3 drank 3 big bowls as a farewell. No one shed tears on their clothes. Then, Du Yehu raised a bowl of wine toward the southwest. However, he did not say anything. He only poured the wine. Everyone knew who he was bidding farewell to. This time, Duyehu went to Zhejiang from the south gate and took the official road. The small path that led to the Green Willow River was in the southwest direction. The recruitment of the Zhejiang Xian armor was open to everyone from the Ministry of War to the National Academy. After all, it was not an exaggeration to say that this army was the pride of the Zhuang capital. Therefore, he did not have to go through too many procedures to leave the National Academy. He had already said what he needed to say. Even if he could see his friend off for 1,000 miles, he would have to part in the end. "I'm leaving." In the end, Duyu only said this before he carried his bag and went on his way empty-handed. At that moment, there was no wind or rain, and the clouds gradually parted. Autumn was coming to an end. As a disciple of the side branch of the Lin family in Wangjiang City, Lin Jingluan had been in the limelight recently. First, he married a widow and was mocked by others. However, he did not care. After marriage, the couple was loving and harmonious. In a few days, he had pride opened the medicinal herb market in Maplewood City. In Wangjiang City, which valued business very much, this had undoubtedly won him considerable recognition. He even used this opportunity to control the medicinal herb business within the Lin family. Perhaps the side branch would become the main branch, and a sparrow would become a phoenix. Only then did people know that the widow he married was not simple. She had brought a dowry. It was the medicinal herb shop with the best reputation in the entire Fengxi town. Who did not know that the medicinal herb business in Maplewood City depended on the harvest of Fengxi town? In Fengxi town, the Jiang family's medicinal shop was famous far and wide. Of course, they had changed their surname to Lin. Back then, the Lin family's medicinal herbs had tried their best to squeeze into Maplewood City, but progress had been difficult. No one had thought that Lin Jingluan would find another way and rely on a marriage to break the situation. This caused quite a few people to feel regret. After all, the widow herself was quite beautiful, let alone having such benefits. Sitting in the Wangjiang Tower in Wangjiang City and looking into the distance, the dragon-like body of the vast and mighty Qing River moved in their eyes. Lin Jingluan sat in the main seat and toasted with his new friends. Listening to the flattery of everyone present, he was very proud. Tap, tap, tap. The sound of going upstairs was so clear that Lin Jingluan turned his head to see who was so blind. He, big official Lin, had clearly booked this floor. With this look, the people sitting with him had already stood up. Young Master Lin. Young Master Lin. There were many young masters with the surname Lin, but there was only one who could make so many famous people present bow to him. That was the legitimate son of the Lin family's patriarch, the future patriarch of the Lin family, Lin Jingli. Lin Jingluan subconsciously wanted to stand up, but he forcibly restrained himself and sat in his original position. He smiled and said, "Little brother Jingli, how come you have time to come to Wangjiang Tower today? I've already booked this floor. You can play as much as you want. Put all your expenses on my account." That's right. He was the elder brother of this young Master Lin. In the past, he was a lowly person, so there was nothing to say. Now that he had relied on his great contributions to enter the main line, in terms of seniority, it was natural for him to be ranked first. Even though he couldn't compete with Lin Zhengli for the position of the Lin family's patriarch, he was about to control the entire family's medicinal herb business. Naturally, he had the confidence to sit and talk. As soon as he said this, the young masters behind Lin Zhengli all laughed. They were all sons of influential families. Even if they laughed inexplicably, Lin Jingluan couldn't say anything. On the other hand, Lin Jingli himself was very calm. He even cupped his hands and bowed to Lin Jingluan. Big brother Jingluan is too polite. Under Lin Jingluan's attentive invitation, they sat down. Lin Jingli smiled and said, "I've never had a chance before. Since we've coincidentally met today, this little brother has some things to say to elder brother." Lin Jingluan looked around rather complacently. His meaning was, "Look at how much the future patriarch of the Lin family respects me." But his mouth deliberately said modestly, "Little brother Zhengli is too polite. There's no harm in saying anything." Your elder brother is a few years older than you, so I have some life experience to share with you. That's good. Lin Jingli smiled. Has the medicinal herb business in Maplewood City been stabilized? This question scratched his itch, and Lin Jinglin laughed heartily. With your elder brother taking action, there's no reason why it can't be taken down. Little brother Jingli, just watch. In less than 2 years, all the medicinal herbs in Maplewood City will follow our Lin family surname. That's good, that's good. Lin Zhengli nodded repeatedly. Since that's the case, elder brother can rest at ease in the autumn garden. Of course. Lin Jingluan first subconsciously echoed, then immediately reacted. The autumn garden had a nice name, but it was only a place for the clan's lonely elders to retire. What age was Lin Jingluan? Why should he retire there? Little brother Jingli, don't make this kind of joke. Lin Jingluan forced a smile. Lin Jingli restrained his smile. I never joke. I'll personally take over the medicinal herbs business. The young masters who came upstairs with him laughed again. The laughter was very light, but it sounded very heavy. The autumn wind blew across the surface of Qing River, and then into Wang River Tower, blowing onto Lin Jingluan's body. He realized that he couldn't resist. Only now did he feel cold. It was already late autumn. He thought. Chapter 37. The Azure Dragon was in the east and belonged to the wood element. Jiang Wang sensed the vitality and the growth of his qi and blood. He did not know if it was an illusion, but the newly born Tao energy in the Heaven Connecting Palace seemed to be more agile. It reduced the difficulty of arranging the array points. Before opening the Heaven and Earth Gate, one could use the wood element to strengthen the body. This was undoubtedly one of the advantages of the military strategy. The Four Spirits body tempering technique used the metal element to break the bones, the fire element to temper the body, the water element to nourish the flesh, and the wood element to increase the qi and blood. It was very complete and did not lose the great Tao. Jiang Wang had no intention of switching to the military strategy, and he did not intend to use his qi and blood to break through his meridians. However, the strengthened qi and blood could also nourish his Tao energy and increase the speed of his Tao vortex formation. Originally, he could only do 2 to 3 meridian breakthroughs a day. Other than that, he could only use his time to practice his sword techniques and study Tao scriptures. However, the purple qi from the east had reached a bottleneck. At least for now, being distracted by body refinement would not delay his cultivation time. The Heavenly Cycle Star Foundation laying array seemed to have a bright future, but it was indeed too difficult and slow. However, Jiang Wang was not anxious. When he was very young, his father had told him that a 99-year-old ginseng could be sold for 100 taels of silver. If he was willing to wait for another year, the price of a 100-year-old ginseng could be calculated in gold. Waiting was not in vain. Some futures were worth waiting for. Therefore, there were many rumors in the Tao Academy. Some said that Fong Helling was about to form his second Tao vortex, and some said that someone had already opened his meridians and would soon surpass him. Jiang Wang still followed the routine and was not in a hurry. The morning bell and evening drum continued day and night. October was also known as the dew moon. Autumn left and winter came, and there was more dew, hence the name. To the residents of Maplewood City, the most important thing in October was undoubtedly the Three Cities Tao Debate. The Three Cities Tao Debate, as the name suggested, was a joint Tao development competition between the three cities' Tao academies. The purpose was to learn from each other and sharpen each other's skills. In fact, it was also to prepare for the County Tao Academy examination in November every year. Similar activities were held in all the cities and academies in the Zhuang country. It was just that the names were different. For example, the Northern Wind Plays the Snow, organized by Green Mist City and White's Tag City, which was named after the Northern Wind Plays the Snow, was much more elegant and interesting. It had even become a famous event in the prefecture, attracting many tourists every year. In reality, it was merely a Tao development competition formed by the 5 surrounding cities. In comparison, the Tao discussion of the 3 cities was much simpler. It couldn't be helped. The three nearby cities were Wangjiang City, Maplewood City, and Tri-Mountain City. Needless to say, Maplewood City's simplicity was its style. The red maples on the outskirts of Maplewood City were like fire, and there was no lack of beautiful scenery. However, the only poem that was somewhat famous was written by a cultivator from Azure Mist City when he passed by. Wangjiang City pursued profits in its bones and did not care whether it was elegant or not. Three Mountain City was even simpler. The people there were even called mountain barbarians. This was the foundation of the three cities, and there was nothing much to say. However, with the development of the past few years, it gradually became more than a competition between students. To a certain extent, it even reflected the strength of the three cities and affected the distribution of resources in the Zhuang country. Therefore, it had an intense meaning. This year, it happened to be Maplewood City's turn. The entire Maplewood City, from the city lord to the ordinary citizens, paid close attention. The major restaurants had long been decorated with lanterns and colored banners. The authorities had strengthened law and order, and thieves had disappeared. In Maplewood City's Tao Academy, there was naturally a selection. That's how it is. It was rare for Wei Qiji and Dong A to appear at the same time. However, they were unwilling to sit down and stood on the stage. According to the usual practice, our city's Tao Academy will choose 2 first-year students, 3 third-year students, and 5-year students to participate in this Tao development. Wei Qiji's skin was dark, and his eyes were stern. When he did not smile, he was really scary. I'll be straightforward. Victory is not allowed. The loser, don't blame me for making things difficult for you. The so-called first-year students were those who had cultivated in the Tao Academy for about a year. In fact, the main force was chosen from the disciples of the previous batch. They had cultivated for more than a year. It was the same for the third-year and fifth-year students. The reason why there were no students who had cultivated for more than 5 years was that generally, those who had not been promoted to a county's Tao Academy after 5 years had basically given up on cultivating and turned to the secular world to enjoy wealth. The city lord's words were so direct that the Tao Academy students, standing below the stage, could not help but feel nervous. Some students who had planned to be in the limelight at the three cities' Tao discussion immediately began to hesitate. If a first-year student wins a battle, he will be rewarded with 10 Tao merit points. If a third-year student wins a battle, he will be rewarded with 20 points. If a fifth-year student wins a battle, he will be rewarded with 50 points. Dong A's expression was still very cold and solemn as she added words to warm up the atmosphere. One of them had a dark expression, while the other had a cold expression. They complemented each other. It was just that the two most important figures in Maplewood City had both coincidentally expressed the importance they attached to this Tao preaching. This not only involved the allocation of resources, but also the embodiment of their governance and dignity. Especially after the entire little forest town had been reduced to a wasteland, Maplewood City urgently needed to make a strong voice. Next, I will directly announce the names. If you feel that you are not strong enough and want to withdraw, you could do so now. Since this Tao discussion was so important, Dong A did not bother with the self-registration. Instead, she directly announced the names. This Tao discussion will be led by Zhang Linchuan. Below the stage, Zhang Linchuan pressed his forehead helplessly and muttered, "I'm under a lot of pressure." "You're under a lot of pressure?" On the stage, Dong A's gaze had already landed on him. With the cultivation of a fifth-stage expert, even if it was just a fart, she could immediately find the fart's owner, let alone muttering. "But I'm very confident," Zhang Linchuan immediately said. Only then did Dong A let him go and continue to announce the names of the others. Senior Brother Zhang is indeed Senior Brother Zhang. Even the Dean recognizes you as the #1 person in our Tao Academy. Huang Azan flattered in a low voice. When Zhang Linchuan arrived at the academy today, it was already very late. Instead of going to the front row, he stood with Jiang Wang and the others. Perhaps it was because he wanted to be ignored by the dean, but he was still picked out at the first moment. If Zhu Wei and Wei Yin could both go, I wouldn't have to work so hard. Zhang Linchuan glared at Huang Azan soberly. He did not want Wei Yin to come to him with a knife tomorrow, but he immediately covered his nose with a handkerchief. How long has it been since you bathed? How can a real man waste time on bathing? Huang Azan said righteously. Then he lowered his head and sniffed a few more times. It doesn't smell. Zhang Linchuan took 2 steps forward in disgust. Wei Yin was a member of the Ministry of War. It was normal that he could not participate in the Dao discussion. But why was Zhu Wei not here? Shouldn't such a leading figure appear at this time? Jiang Wang thought about it and asked, why can't senior brother Zhu go? Oh, it seems that he went to chase after the heart-devouring demon. Zhang Linchuan said casually. Jiang Wang, Ling He, and Huang Azan were all dumbfounded. Chase. The 9 great demons were notorious. They wreaked havoc in various countries and committed countless evil deeds. It was not an exaggeration to say that they were the most vicious people in the world. Even if Xiong Wan was the weakest of the 9 great demons because of his cruel methods, he was still a rank 6 expert who had opened the heaven and earth gate. He was qualified to be called a soaring dragon cultivator. Rank 9 cultivators used their Dao essence to set up formation points and establish Dao spirals to complete the foundation. When the Dao Meridian true spirit leaped into the Dao spirals, it was the Dao Meridian realm. Rank 8 cultivators established 3 Dao spirals and built a small cycle in the Heaven Connecting Palace. It was the Heaven Connecting Realm. Rank 7 cultivators established the 3 small cycles of heaven, earth, and man. After completing the great cycle, they connected their physical bodies and cleansed the Heaven Connecting Palace. Only then could the Dao Meridian Dragon awaken and see the Heaven and Earth Gate. It was the Heaven Connecting Realm. The Heaven and Earth Gate that sealed the Heaven Connecting Palace was also called the first stage of cultivation. Only by opening the Heaven and Earth Gate could one see one's nature clearly and see the Dao Meridian Dragon. Before rank 6, the standard Taoist robes of any Dao Academy disciple could only be linen. It showed that they were not afraid of hardship and had the heart to overcome all obstacles. After rank 6, the experts of the 3 middle ranks could wear soaring dragon Taoist robes. The soaring dragon realm, inner mansion realm, and outer mansion realm only had slight differences in the details. This was a symbol of status and the embodiment of honor. Any cultivator who had the qualifications to wear soaring dragon Taoist robes could be called an expert. Moreover, Xiongwen was a notorious existence and was an expert among soaring dragon cultivators. And now, Zhu Weiwa, a mere student of the Dao Academy, was actually chasing after him. Chapter 38. Eldest senior brother is indeed eldest senior brother. Ling He sighed, feeling as if he was looking up at a tall mountain. Then what's senior brother Zhu's cultivation level now? Jiang Wang asked again. I haven't seen him in a while. Zhang Linchuan sighed inexplicably. He should have already opened the Heaven and Earth Gate. Then he's about the same as you, senior brother. They're on par. I still think highly of you, senior brother Zhang. Huang Azan was very persistent in flattering him. Everyone knew that Zhang Linchuan had already opened the Heaven and Earth Gate for a long time. He was only a step away from the 6th stage soaring dragon realm. Therefore, it wasn't impossible to say that they were about the same, but Zhang Linchuan looked at Huang Azan strangely, then took 2 more steps away. Although Zhu Weiwa had just entered the 6th stage, he had been hunting down the heart-devouring demon all over the world. How could he be an ordinary person who had just entered the 6th stage? Zhao Ruqing and Jiang Wang looked at each other, then tacitly moved away. Hey, what's the meaning of this? Huang Azan shouted. Zhao Ruqing sighed. I finally know why Tiger Dew is becoming more and more stupid. Jiang Wang also looked up at the sky. Perhaps stupidity is contagious. At this time, Dong had already read out the last spot for the first-year students. According to convention, each academy must have a spot for the first-year students in the Dao debate. It's given to the newest batch of academy disciples to show that there are talented people in every generation. Below the stage, Fong Helling suddenly clenched his fists. Among the academy disciples in the same batch as him, Only he and Jiang Wang were the first to open their meridians. Now that a few months had passed, there were other students who had also opened their meridians. However, only he, Fong Helling, had finished laying the foundation. He could be considered to be the most outstanding. If one had to represent the standards of the new students in Maplewood City's Tao Academy, who else could it be but him? This was a kind of glory. It was enough to wash away the doubts his father had about him buying a Meridian's unlocking pill despite everyone's objections. He, Fong Helling, must, Jiang Wang. Dong A said. The audience was in an uproar. Jiang Wang's name was well known in the Chung Dao Academy, as he was the first in the outer core to enter the inner core and had won the Dao verification death duel in public. As for the fact that he had been hesitating for a long time before laying the foundation, some people added fuel to the fire and spread the news very widely. What was it about Jiang Lang's talent being exhausted? Over and over again, it was the same thing. And in the eyes of Dean Dong, he actually represented the strongest amongst the new students. Dean, Fong Helling stood out angrily and met Dong Ah's cold and solemn gaze. It was as if a basin of cold water had been poured over his head. He was extremely perturbed, but soon he straightened his neck and said, I refuse to accept this. Huh. Wei Qiji smiled. He was very happy to see Dong A being questioned, even though he believed that Dong A's vision would not be wrong. It's very simple. Wei Qiji said, come on stage and fight. Whoever wins will go. Only after the words left his mouth did he realize how stupid he was. No matter what, he couldn't and shouldn't question Dong Ah on such an occasion. He shouldn't question a big shot who could easily decide his future. Fong Helling could only feel his heels trembling, but he still forced himself to stand and look at Dong A. He was already riding a tiger and had no way to back down. Fortunately, Dong A didn't seem to have any intention of making things difficult for him, nor did he embarrass Wei Qiji. All right, he said. Fong Helling heaved a sigh of relief. He straightened his back as much as possible and walked up to the high platform under the gaze of the crowd. He wanted to use his familiar Dao techniques to defeat his opponent as easily as crushing dry weeds and smashing rotten wood. He wanted to prove that he wasn't doing this for himself, but for the reputation of the entire Maplewood City's Dao Academy. How could they send a guy who couldn't lay the foundation for the three cities' martial arts exhibition? He felt the gazes of the crowd. There was surprise, envy, jealousy, and solemnity in their gazes. As he walked on the path where the crowd parted, he suddenly wondered if his cousin Fong Pengju had felt the same when he was in the limelight. Fong Pengju had died before entering the inner sect, but he was already a dignified inner sect disciple. Then he heard Jiang Wang's voice. Jiang Wang had been extremely calm throughout the entire process. He was so calm that it seemed as if it had nothing to do with him. But after Dong A agreed to determine the quota through battle, he raised his eyes and asked casually, Can I injure people? Can I injure people? He was asking if the rules allowed it, not if he could. Fong Helling's lungs were about to explode from anger. Dong A said expressionlessly, You can't cripple or kill. Apart from that, he could do anything. Wei Qiji, Dong A, and a few Maplewood City officials and Dao Academy instructors stood on the high platform. At this moment, all of them took a few steps back and stood at the edge of the high platform to make room for the battle. Jiang Wang nodded. He walked calmly toward the high platform with one hand on his scabbard. Fong Helling, who was already standing on the high platform, stared at him like a nail. Don't worry, we're from the same sect. I won't cripple you, Fong Helling said through clenched teeth. The crowd looked forward to Jiang Wang's fierce reply, but Jiang Wang remained silent. The two of them stood facing each other on the high platform. This scene reminded many people of the death match at the Dao examination a few months ago. One of them was still Jiang Wang, and the other was still surnamed Fong. Wei Qiji was originally in high spirits, but after noticing Fong Helling's agitation and eagerness, and then looking at Jiang Wang's calmness from beginning to end, he suddenly lost interest. One was clearly a young chick who had never fought to the death, while the other was a cultivator who had experienced countless battles. Even if there was a slight difference in cultivation, What suspense was there to speak of? Let's begin. He waved his hand disinterestedly. Clang! It was the whistling sound of a sword being unsheathed. Before the battle began, Fong Helling had imagined many ways to fight and considered which Dao technique would be the most advantageous. He was not stupid. He knew that his greatest advantage over Jiang Wang was in Dao techniques. He could use Dao techniques, while Jiang Wang could not. This was his chance to win. However, that sword was too fast. Fong Helling's final Dao technique was the Flaming Blade. Among the basic Dao techniques of the 5 elements, this technique was the most violent, and he was the most proficient in it. In order to maintain his lead and wash away the doubts in his clan, he did not slack off. He had been working hard all this time. Now he only needed 3 breaths to complete the hand seals. However, that sword was too fast. Was it 2 breaths or 1 breath? In any case, he had just begun to form the hand seals when that sword was already at his neck. The edge of that sword was faintly piercing the skin and blood vessels on his neck. It was over? What kind of sword technique was this? Jiang Wang turned the tip of his sword and used the blade to lightly tap Fong Helling's cheek, waking him from his daze. You've lost, Jiang Wang said. Fong Helling was at a loss and felt helpless. How could this be? He did not even have time to use a single Dao technique. If, after a period of time, when he had completed the minor heavenly cycle and branded the Flaming Blade Dao technique in the Heavenly Connecting Palace, he would have been able to instantly cast it. He definitely would not have been unable to attack. If he suddenly raised his head and gritted his teeth. You must have used your Dao essence to activate your sword technique. You haven't even laid your foundation. Every Dao essence you use is 1 less. You're actually willing to delay laying your foundation for such a competition. You're really willing. Jiang Wang sheathed his sword and turned around to leave the high platform. Just like every time he encountered Fong Helling's provocation, he was too lazy to respond and disdainful. An ant was provoking him in the middle of the road, and humans could not hear its voice at all. You'll never be able to lay your foundation in this lifetime. Fong Helling shouted at his back. Get down. What a disgrace. With a wave of Dong A's sleeve, Fong Helling really rolled down the high platform. He stood up and looked around. All he saw were looks of sympathy and disdain. He was stunned for a moment. Suddenly, he roared and staggered away. Chapter 39. The other first-year student participating in the 3 cities Dao discussion was actually an inner courtyard student from the previous batch. He could be considered to have stepped on the tail of the first-year students. The 2 representatives of the third-year students were Jiang Wang's acquaintances, Li Jinxiu and Wang Zhangxiang. Apart from the 5th-year student Zhang Linchuan, the other person was a senior brother that Jiang Wang did not know. Because Dao merit was a consumable item, the ranking on the Dao merit list did not completely reflect one's strength. At least, Dong A had his own judgment criteria. Of course, Zhang Linchuan was still the leader of this Dao discussion. He also placed his hopes on Wei Qiji and Dong A to win first place. If Zhu Weiwo was here, they might not have to do so. However, Zhu Weiwo could not be found now, so Dong A could only keep a close eye on Zhang Linchuan. Zhang Linchuan expressed that he was under a lot of pressure. The 3 cities Dao discussion would start on the 10th of October. Before that, everyone, including Zhang Linchuan and Jiang Wang, had to go through special training. They did not use any method to squeeze out the students' combat strength to the limit in a short period of time. That was not the right way to go. Even if they won the competition in front of them, they would lose the future of the students. Instead, Donga personally gave guidance to everyone participating in the competition. This was a great benefit, and it also showed how much Dong A valued them. Dong A would personally give a class every 10 days. That class would definitely be full. Many senior brothers who were out on missions all year round would specially rush back to the Dao Academy on that day. Jiang Wang did not miss a single one. However, Dong A's class was for the entire Dao Academy. Of course, he could not specially take care of Jiang Wang's progress. Therefore, he had a hard time listening and did not gain much. Jiang Wang had met Dong A many times. He still did not dare to act rashly in front of him. Although he did not tiptoe, he was still very respectful. After all, this powerhouse was known for his upright and straightforward personality. He would also talk back to the high-ranking officials of Xian and City. Even Wei Qiji felt uncomfortable in an environment where Dong A was present, let alone a small student like Jiang Wang. You've opened your meridians for some time. Why haven't you laid your foundation yet? Dong A asked directly as soon as he sat down. Jiang Wang braced himself and said, "Perhaps my aptitude is too low." Dong A had already reached out her hand. "Forget it, I'll see for myself." Jiang Wang didn't dare to resist. He could only hope that Dong A wouldn't discover his secret. Of course, it wouldn't be a big problem if they found out. The students of the Tao Academy had a master-disciple relationship with the dean. In the future, they would be treated as one in the Zhuang Nation's official circles. In essence, they were bound together. As long as there was no problem with principles, Dong A would not do anything to him. Moreover, the Heaven and Earth Gate was both a barrier and a cover. Before the Heaven and Earth Gate was opened, the situation hidden deep within the Tongtian Palace was not so easy to investigate. Unless Dong A personally took action and broke open Jiang Wang's gate of heaven and earth from the outside. But in that case, Jiang Wang would also be destroyed. Dong A wouldn't do that. As soon as Dong A's hand touched Jiang Wang's spine, she frowned. "You're already very slow at laying your foundation. Why did you also cultivate the body refining method?" Prominent sects like the Taoist, Dharma, and Confucianism had their own magnanimity. They didn't forbid their disciples from cultivating other sects' cultivation techniques. What Dong A was concerned about was whether Jiang Wang would be distracted by this and neglect the fact that cultivation was his foundation. Jiang Wang answered, "I've never slacked off in breaking through my meridians. However, my qi and blood are limited. I can only break through my meridians twice a day. Therefore, I've cultivated the body refining method in order to strengthen my qi and blood. I'll do more meridians breaking through and gather more Tao essence so that I can lay my foundation as soon as possible." It's enough to break through your meridians twice a day. Having more Tao essence isn't necessarily better. Control is the right path. After all, these were just small details. Therefore, Dong A only pointed it out with a responsible attitude. She used a secret technique to sense the situation in Jiang Wang's Tongtian Palace outside his spine. "The foundation laying array you used wasn't the essence returning array?" Dong A suddenly asked. He was still discovered. Jiang Wang felt an inexplicable sense of relief. In front of an experienced expert like Dong, it was as difficult as ascending to the heavens to hide anything. "Yes," Jiang Wang admitted honestly. "The foundation-laying array I used was much more complicated than the essence-returning array. This is also the reason why I haven't been able to lay my foundation yet." "Nonsense," Dong A reprimanded. "There are many more foundation-laying arrays in this world that are better than the essence-returning array. Do you know why our Mount Yujing still uses this? Because it's stable, safe, and efficient. It can be safely used in any Tongtian palace of any scale. It's the most widely applicable foundation-laying array. Laying your foundation is such an important matter. How can you take it for granted without asking your master?" Jiang Wang's face heated up, and he felt ashamed. Wasn't it because after Fang Pengju's betrayal, he became a frightened bird? Although it wasn't to the extent that he would constantly have delusions of being persecuted, he didn't dare to reveal his fortuitous encounters anymore. In the end, he still hadn't fully established the trust of a disciple toward his master in Dong A. That day, when Dong A saw his injuries, she immediately sealed off the Taoist Academy. That time, he was indeed touched. However, in the time that he spent with Fang Pengju in the past, how many times had he been touched? He was about to tell Dong A what kind of foundation-laying array he used when Dong A waved his hand. Forget it. Now that things have come to this, time has already passed. There's no point in saying more. He thought for a while and removed a green jade pendant from his waist. He passed it to Jiang Wang. "There's a secret technique recorded in this jade pendant. It can help you improve your control of your Tao energy and allow you to complete your foundation laying array earlier. Wear it all year round, and it can also clear your mind. Take it. I'm afraid. Jiang Wang saw that it was an item that he carried around with him and rejected. This is Master Dong's beloved item. How can I take it away from you? Dong stroked the jade pendant. His usually cold and stern face revealed a hint of nostalgia. It was given to me by an old friend. My old friend has already turned to dust. He quickly regained his composure and placed the jade pendant into Jiang Wang's hands without hesitation. This item is already useless to me. Take it. The future of the Zhuang kingdom is yours. As he held the jade pendant in his hand and focused his mind, a secret technique flowed into his mind. It was called the elemental control technique. Jiang Wang held the jade pendant tightly and bowed to the ground. Thank you, Master. Dong didn't like to act out the deep affection between master and disciple. He pulled Jiang Wang up and told him some things that he needed to pay attention to during cultivation. Then, he waved his hand and let him leave. Today, because he had to cultivate with Dong, Jiang Wang asked Ling to pick up Jiang Ainen. Therefore, he didn't have to make a trip to the private school. Instead, he directly went to the dormitory. The new secret technique was very important to Jiang Wang. Now that he had succeeded in cultivating his body, he was full of qi and blood. He could break through his meridians 4 times a day and swallow 4 Tao energy beads. Only the heavenly cycle star formation became more and more complicated as he progressed. With his current control over Tao energy, every time he laid down a formation point, he would have to exhaust his mental strength. In fact, this was the problem that restricted him from quickly laying down his foundation. The elemental control technique could help Jiang Wang control Tao energy with the least effort. It allowed him to set up the formation points with ease and without wasting his time. Dong saw the problem at a glance and gave him a solution. 1 sentence from his master was better than 10 years of hard work. Jiang Wang carefully tied the elemental control jade pendant to his waist. He planned to never take it off in this lifetime. Dong saw him as his future favorite disciple and was willing to give him an item that he always carried with him. At this time, didn't he already see Dong as someone to rely on? There's an invitation for you. When he went to pick up Jiang Ainen, Ling, he suddenly said. Jiang Wang held Jiang Ainen with one hand and took the invitation with the other. Only then did he understand why Ling He's expression was so serious. The owner of the invitation was Fong Zihu. He was the strongest contender for the next patriarch of the Fong clan, Fong Pengju's uncle, Fong Helling's father. The banquet was held at the Full Moon restaurant. A few months ago, it was the place where Fong Pengju set up a trap to poison him. Thank you to book friend Yuri 123 for the sect leader's reward. Thank you to book friend Jean 49, book friend Shuratang San, book friend 2018007270930066600, book friend Defeat Dog Ajan, book friend Huang Ajan, book friend Yin Air Goes Reward. Chapter 40. Interesting. Jiang Wang smiled. Are you going? Lingy asked. Why not? Jiang Wang turned to an inn and said, I'll take you to eat and drink. How about it? Jiang Ainen nodded her head seriously. Ling he tidied up his clothes and took his sword with him. Hey, Jiang Wang stopped him. You don't have to follow. We're not going to fight. Meeting Ling He's gaze, Jiang Wang added, Don't worry. The Fong family isn't that stupid. Ling He thought for a moment and felt that it made sense. He put down his sword and sat down cross-legged. To him, if there was nothing else, he could cultivate all day long. Cultivation had its own universe, and it was a joy to cultivate. On the way to Full Moon restaurant, and then suddenly looked up and asked, Are the Fong family bad people? Oh, Jiang Wang looked at her with interest. Why do you say that? I think even Brother Ling, he wants to beat them up, Jiang Ainen said. Jiang Wang laughed. With Ling He's personality, it was rare for him to show hostility to anyone. Then let's not go eat, Jiang Ainen said again. That won't do. We have to eat with style and standard, Jiang Wang said deliberately. If we eat the bad people poor, we'll be doing a good thing, understand? Jiang Anan bit her thumb and nodded thoughtfully. Slap, don't bite your fingers. There was a full moon restaurant in Full Moon City. It was well known far and wide. Full Moon Restaurant, which had a similar name in Maplewood City, paled in comparison. This restaurant wasn't tall, only 3 stories high. However, it was called Full Moon Restaurant. It inevitably didn't match the name and made people laugh. However, the dishes in this restaurant were rare and good. Therefore, business had always been prosperous in Maplewood City. Jiang Wang carried Jiang and into Full Moon Restaurant and was led to a private room by the Fong family servants. A middle-aged man with a dignified temperament and a scholarly face stood up to welcome them. Nephew. His gaze fell on Anan, and his smile became even more amiable. This is your sister? How cute. Jiang Wang had seen Fong Zihu before. Back when he was close to Fong Pengju, Fong Zihu had invited them to dinner more than once. At that time, Fong Zihu was very protective of his nephew and had high hopes for him. After Fong Pengju's death, because it was a dishonorable death, no one from the Fong clan was willing to bury him. Jiang Wang didn't want to be his nephew. He greeted, "Greetings, Master Fong." "Not yet, not yet." Fong Zihu smiled and waved his hand. He took a string of golden beads from a servant and handed it to Jiang Anan. "This is our first meeting. Uncle has a gift for you." Jiang Anan turned her head away and buried her face in Jiang Wang's arms. In her little mind, she had long determined that this was a bad person, so she didn't even want to talk to him. Jiang Wang sat Jiang Anan down at the table and said, "The little girl is shy with strangers. Please don't mind her. Let's forget about the gift. Squire Fong, why don't you tell me directly why you invited me to meet you?" Fong Zihu was a minister counselor, so he had a proper official position. The way he addressed her wasn't out of place. I'm not busy. Fong Zihu didn't look embarrassed at all. He waved his hand and asked the servant to put away the string of golden beads. Then he said, "First, try the signature dish here, lotus leaf chicken." Jiang Anan had already made up her mind to eat the poor scoundrel. She was ready to eat, but Jiang Wang stopped her. Jiang Wang stretched out his chopsticks and tasted every dish on the table. After a while, he picked a few dishes and placed them in front of him. "Brother has already tasted them for you. These dishes are the best." Jiang Anan wanted to complain, but the fragrance of the lotus leaf chicken went straight into her nose. She didn't have time to complain, so she tore off a drumstick and started to eat. Fong Zhu smiled amiably, as if he didn't notice Jiang Wang's vigilance at all. "Brother and sister have such a good relationship," he praised. "I'll just make do with it," Jiang Wang casually said. Jiang Anan glared at him, but she couldn't open her mouth. She could only bitterly take another bite of the chicken wing. Jiang Wang didn't care and continued to ask, "I don't know why Minister Counselor is looking for me this time." Fong Zhu suddenly gave a long sigh. His expression became heavy. "Our Fong family owes you an apology for Pengju's matter." When it came to Fong Pengju, Jiang Wang couldn't help but be serious. No matter what happened, Fong Pengju was already dead. The grudges were over. He didn't want to and didn't need to chase after Fong Pengju's memorial tablet. "It's all in the past," Jiang Wang said. "Virtuous nephew may say this, but our Fong family can't not express anything." Fong Zhu pushed a small box over from the table. "This is 100 taels of pure gold. It's an apology. Fong Pengju's matter. He took responsibility for it." Jiang Wang wasn't in the mood to beat around the bush. He didn't even look at the box of gold. "If you have something to say, just say it." Fong Zihu nodded. "Pengju was our Fong family's hope. His future was limitless. He was killed by you in a death match. Although it was his own fault, our Fong family didn't find trouble with you because of this, right?" Yes, this was the truth. Jiang Wang didn't need to deny it. "Now, Uncle has something to ask of you." Jiang Wang looked at him, hinting for him to continue. Fong Zhu said, "After Pengju's death, in our Fong family's next generation, only He Ling could be considered to be capable. I could only put away my grief and put all my concern for Pengju on He Ling. He's also very hardworking and his cultivation has even surpassed yours. But Jiang Wang raised his eyebrows. He knew that the highlight of the show was coming. When he fought with you previously, his confidence was crushed. His entire person collapsed. He locked himself in his room and drowned his sorrows in alcohol all day long. In the long run, I'm worried that he will become a cripple. At this point, even an old fox like Fang Zihu's voice trembled. After all, that was his only son. So? Jiang Wang asked. It's hard to say, Fang Zihu said. Fang Zihu said, but Uncle still hopes that you can go and apologize to Healing and say that you used dishonorable methods in the duel to help him regain his confidence. Jiang Wang wanted to laugh. How can I admit something I didn't do? I won't admit it for nothing. I won't admit it for nothing. Fang Zihu said, after this matter is settled, in addition to this box of pure gold, I'll give you 100 taels of pure gold. You only pretended to lower your head once. Jiang Wang bent his finger and knocked on a box of gold. He laughed. The Fang family also produced cultivators. I remember that old Master Fang was an 8th-stage heavenly cycle realm cultivator. Does this so-called gold and silver have any meaning to cultivators? He pressed his finger on the small box and gently pushed it back. Fang Zihu immediately took out a small brocade box, opened it carefully, and placed it in front of Jiang Wang. The fluctuation of Tao energy in the brocade box attracted Jiang Wang's attention almost instantly. This is a Tao energy stone. I think it's meaningful to cultivators. Fang Zihu appeared very sincere. As long as you lower your head a little, it's yours. Of course, this Tao energy stone was meaningful. Compared to the gold and silver of the mortal world, Tao energy stones were the hard currency of cultivators. They could be used to assist in cultivation and replenish consumption at any time. Moreover, the Tao energy stone in front of him had never been used before. It was full of 100 Tao energy stones. For Jiang Wang, as long as he absorbed this Tao energy stone, he would reach the foundation-laying standard almost immediately. He finally understood why Fang Heling could lay his foundation so quickly and was even close to completing the minor heavenly cycle. However, Jiang Wang only gently closed the box. Perhaps it's as you said, my lowering my head is worthless. He also pushed the brocade box back, but Fang Heling doesn't deserve it. He was the one who had been provoked, and the one who had been forced to fight was also him. Why should he apologize? If he lost and collapsed, who could he blame? Were the weak naturally righteous? Were you reasonable just because you were weak? Tao energy stones were very important, but reason was even more important. Even if you don't think for yourself, think for your sister, Fang Zihu said slowly. Is she still studying in the private school? At this time, Jiang Anan was still eating left and right, burying her head in the bowl, chewing until her mouth was full of oil. She had no idea what the adults were talking about. Jiang Wang's gaze suddenly tightened. For the first time, there was such clear and unreserved killing intent. Fang Zihu forced himself to look straight at him and actually had the urge to jump out of the window and escape. Only now did he realize that the youth in front of him was completely different from his son. He was definitely not a delicate seedling raised in a greenhouse. Instead, he was a young beast who had already experienced wind and rain and struggled to survive. Ha! Jiang Wang suddenly laughed a few times, stood up, and picked up Jiang Anan. Let's not eat anymore. Let's go home. No matter what he thought, he would not act brave and ruthless in front of Jiang Anan, and he would not put Jiang Anan in danger. Woo-woo! Jiang Anan swallowed the meat in her mouth with difficulty. She was already in Jiang Wang's arms, but her eyes were still staring at the dishes on the table. I beg you. Behind them, Fang Zihu said. However, Jiang Wang had already pushed open the door and left with his sister, without stopping. Thank you, book friend 20170527084735469. Say, give yourself a nickname. Thank you, book friend Shin Io. Book friend loves eating melons. Book friend Seven Knives. Book friend Sad Rain, Sighing Wind for their tips. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.